rescue team, not assassins. Now, what do we gotta do?
In a part of the world where there are no rules.
We pick up their trailer with the chopper, run them down, grab those hostages before anybody knows we were there. What do you mean, we?
Deep in the jungle, where nothing that lives is safe.
You lose it here, you're in a world of hurt. Showtime, kid. Knock, knock.
An elite rescue squad.
You're bleeding, man. I ain't got time to bleed.
Is being led by the ultimate warrior.
We need the best. That's why you're here.
But now,
What's got Billy so spooked?
there's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no man. They're up against the ultimate enemy.
Holy Mother of God.
Nothing like it has ever been on Earth before.
She says the jungle just came alive and took him.
We cannot see it.
No blood, no bodies. We hit nothing.
But it sees the heat of our bodies and the heat of our fear.
Whatever it is out there, killed Harper. And now it wants us.
It kills for pleasure.
You will skin alive!
It hunts for sport.
It's killing us one at a time. We're all gonna die.
But this time, it's picked the wrong man to hunt.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
20th Century Fox presents Arnold Schwarzenegger. Predator. The hunt begins Friday, June 12th at theaters everywhere.
The following is a paid advertisement. Really? A paid advertisement? Wait, the B-Movie Cast got paid? Yes, the following is a paid advertisement. This episode of the B-Movie Cast is brought to you by the estate planning services of Twyla Minear Brooks, attorney at law. Remember, when the zombie apocalypse comes, things will move pretty fast.
The body should be disposed of at once, preferably by cremation.
Well, how long after death, then, does the body become reactivated?
It's only a matter of minutes.
Minutes? Well, that doesn't give people time to make any arrangements.
Oh, you're right. It doesn't give them time to make funeral arrangements. The bodies must be carried to the street and burned. They must be burned immediately. Soak them with gasoline and burn them. The bereaved will have to forego the dubious comforts that a funeral service will give. They're just dead flesh and dangerous.
So don't leave your estate planning needs until the last minute, because you don't know when that last minute could come. Call Twyla Minear Brooks, attorney at law, at 859-351-2294. That's 859-351-2294. Remember, when you go, you don't want people saying,
"Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up."
Twyla Minear Brooks, attorney at law, is licensed for practice in the state of Kentucky. Consult your local attorney for matters outside of the state of Kentucky.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
Hi, I'm Bill Mize, the creator of the Bill Watches Movies podcast, and we're interrupting your regularly scheduled program to ask you a few questions. Number 1, have you been feeling a little stressed these days? Number 2, do you need something to make you laugh? And number 3, would you like to just do nothing but relax and listen to a good story? Now, if you answered yes to the above questions, then I invite you to check out my show, Bill Watches Movies. It's a little bit Hollywood history, a little bit old-time radio, and a little bit Mystery Science Theater 3000, well, except we don't have any maroon janitors, wisecracking robots, or inept mad scientists. What we do have is a trip down memory lane as we take a very unique look at the B movies of yesterday and offer you something to make you smile, something to make you laugh, and something to make you think about what you would do if you realized that Bela Lugosi was working on creating an army of atomic-powered supermen next door. So join the rest of the gentle listeners and come on over to BillMakesPodcast.com or look us up on your favorite podcast subscription and transmission machine and subscribe today. I look forward to telling you a good story each month, powered only by my weird sense of humor and a shot of Woodford Reserve Double Oaked Bourbon. I hope that you'll join me on this journey. Take good care of yourself and those that you love. And hey, keep an eye on your next door neighbor. I mean, you never know.
Command mark. The time will be running at X minus 20 seconds. Mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
Spawned by the continuing decline and fall of society as we know it, and created on the second-floor spare-bedroom studio in the Piedmont of South Carolina. Podcasting on a shoestring budget and changing the world one freak at a time. It's the B-Movie Cast with your host, Vince Rotolo.
From coast to coast and worldwide via the internet, this is the B-Movie Cast, the podcast of unusual film and television.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the B-Movie Clubhouse. It's episode 473 of the B-Movie Cast. Before I go any farther, I want to get our contact information out of the way. We love hearing from all of you, so we have a feedback segment devoted to your comments and suggestions, and this is how you can contact us. Option 1, pick up your phone and dial 888-936-0808. This is a toll-free number and a very easy way to leave a voice message. Option 2, you can make your own MP3 file and send it into bmoviecast@gmail.com. Or use your smartphone voice software and record a call, then just send that in as an attachment instead. Or option 3, if you're not into talking, you can just shoot us an email to bmoviecast@gmail.com. Our website is bmoviecast.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast. It's free, and there you can join us on the Facebook B-Moviecast fan page and letterbox. Also, you can play the contest by sending in your answer by email to bmoviecast@gmail.com with contest in the subject line. And check out the links while you're there, or buy a t-shirt. I currently have smalls to 4X's. If you want to help us financially, there's a donation box you can click on as a supporter on the Lugosi, Karloff, Agar, and the infamous Xanadu level through PayPal. Also, the easiest way to donate is to click on the Amazon bar on the right side of our homepage. This Amazon link will take you to Amazon.com to make your purchase. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can still log into your personal accounts when you get there. It's completely private, so think about us before you buy online. So now, through the miracle of modern technology and thousands of miles of wires, server farms, PCs, Macs, the internet, and duct tape, we have our co-host from Lexington, Kentucky, author, editor, screenwriter, film producer, Nic Brown. He has a new website. It is authornicbrown.com. That's AUTHORNICBROWN.com. He is the author of the Werewolf for Hire book series, starting with Blood Curse. He's also selling a book in collaboration with his wife, Fiona, the B-Movie Cookbook. All of these are available on Amazon. He's produced 2 movies, Wretch and Loss Prevention. Both can be ordered on Blu-rays or DVDs through Amazon. He is also the producer of a 3rd film, the soon-to-be-released Fall of Usher. Our special guest host today is Matt Niehoff, who is, along with the B-Movie Cast favorite Brian Cunningham, the co-owner of the full-service production company ThoughtFly Studios in Louisville, Kentucky. Matt has a number of feature film credits, including his collaboration with Brian on their first ever film, the award-winning, I had to take a breath for this one, action comedy zombie alien movie, Overtime. Matt later worked with Nic and Brian as co-writer, director, and more for their action comedy Loss Prevention. And Matt continues to work in film and has been a critical part of Wretch and the Fall of Usher, in addition to his other commercial film and television work through ThoughtFly. To learn more about Matt and see his work, visit www.thoughtfly.com. That's THOUGHTFLY.com. I Googled it, and it's a beautiful upscale website where you can do a deep dive into ThoughtFly Productions. And if you're in the market and you need a production company, there you go. Okay, on with the show. Today's selection is a Matt Niehoff pick. I'm sure you've all seen this little gem. It's a little bit out of our wheelhouse since it's a newer Blockbuster movie, and it had the second biggest opening for the weekend in 1987. But as Nick says, it does have aliens, so there's that. You have me saying that all the time anymore.
Mary,
there's that.
Well, okay. Whoa. First off, we're going to say this. The B movie cast, we're doing B is for Blockbuster.
Oh.
And
right.
This is going to be our first one, and we're going to be doing Raiders of the Lost Ark in a week or two in honor of the 40th anniversary. Ooh. So, and I would argue that both of these, though they were Blockbuster films, are still B movies at heart.
Oh, there's plenty of B movie moments in Predator, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the name of our movie is Predator from 1987.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
By the way.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And it's starring the infamous Arnold Schwarzenegger in another one of his mucho masculine roles. I think I like it better now that I've seen it again. When I saw it the first time, it was just like a shoot-'em-up adventure movie, but now I can focus on the Predator more. And I really like the Predator, and the special effects really held up. That totally shocked me.
Absolutely, and that was one of those ones when it came out. It was a little bit different than the sort of alien trying to kill everybody movie because if you go to Alien, it's kind of a bunch of helpless people with no weapons on a spaceship and this invincible aliens trying to kill them. In this, you have all these big macho guys with machine guns and miniguns, and then the aliens even got guns too, so they really up the ante on everything.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
my biggest problem was, aside from the toxic masculinity. Okay. There's only 8 minutes of Predator screen time in the movie. I wanted more.
Well, you can only have so much of that poor guy in the Predator suit. I mean, God, Kevin Peter Hall, he couldn't even see while he was inside of that outfit.
That's true.
Yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme left the movie because of that, because you couldn't see him at all.
Yeah, he's such a princess.
he is a princess, and God love him, he's kissed the frog a few times. But I will say, it's funny because you brought up that line of why Van Damme isn't in the movie. Other rumors are that he was not in the movie because after they saw him and his 5'9" persona next to all of the stars of the film, Jesse Ventura, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bill Duke, Carl Weathers, and all these guys are over 6 feet tall, and the thought was he's just not scary at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a little gnome alien running around with his little mandible things. It was I could see that. Now from his perspective, I'm sure he didn't want to be like, oh, I was just too short.
Yeah.
So he took the 80s masculine, manly way out of that and was like, true. You don't see my face, and I leave. And I don't know why I gave him a Pepe Le Pew accent, but that's just kind of how I
that's kind of his accent, actually. and bear in mind, some of my favorite action films are Jean-Claude Van Damme films. So I'm all on board the Van Damme train, but I think this movie would have just absolutely sucked if he'd been a red lobster doing kung fu in the jungle.
That's true.
This is such sort of an iconic 80s movie. I kind of grew up on Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and take them for what they are. In my personal opinion, I do put Terminator 2 and Terminator kind of in their own category because he's just sort of he's acting like a robot, so he's kind of stuck in that one thing. But in my opinion, this is probably some of Arnold's best acting and also one of his more serious movies. Obviously this one's got some one-liners and stuff in there that are a little hokey, but if you compare it to like a Total Recall or a Commando, this is actually pretty serious as far as the content matter of it.
Yeah. He actually gets sensitive sometimes in this movie.
No, you're totally right. And, you brought up the masculinity side of it, and I think, and I know, okay,
wow.
Let's put it this way. My beard grows every time I watch Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger do that iconic, hand clap.
The low five with the bicep.
Yeah. Yeah, the bicep to bicep. Not even a handshake. It's like a testosterone slap.
Mm-hmm.
And my beard grows about an inch or so every time I see that, just because all the testosterone coming out of the screen hits me, and it's rough. But that said, the movie actually takes the time to develop all of these people as characters too.
That's true.
You spend some time getting to know them before they get blown up. Spoiler alert.
Well, and Nick, to kind of expand on that a little bit, that's one thing from a writing standpoint that I think is very impressive about this, because you're talking about pretty much 8 guys, and very, very quickly you get who each person is, what type of person they are. Because a lot of people, I'm in some forums online and stuff, and almost, like half the people's favorite character is Jesse Ventura's character in it.
Aww.
And he has I think a total of 10 lines in the whole thing, but and I'm sure most of it's because he has that big, huge minigun, and this also was the first movie to feature a handheld version of that gun, which was kind of cool, which actually is impossible, because if you actually held that, you just fly backwards when you shot it. But his argument was, he had arms bigger than Arnold, so he could handle it.
That was impressive, though.
Yeah, and I could totally see that Jesse Ventura would say he could handle it. So,
that's true.
That's all right.
True.
By the way, can we acknowledge the fact right off the bat that this movie has more governors in it than any other film?
Yeah, it does.
I mean,
governors.
You've got Governor Schwarzenegger from California.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Governor Ventura from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And Sonny Landham, the guy who played Billy the tracker, he actually ran for governor in the state of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he did not win, and he partially blames that on the fact that he was a porn star in the 70s. So...
Yeah, well, after he did Predator, he didn't do a whole lot after that. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of his,
yeah.
He kind of beat people up a lot on set, so people didn't.
Yeah, that was something. That was a good segue into, because I remember reading that he actually had bodyguards that he had to have on set to protect the crew members from him. Apparently,
yeah. That's true.
I guess he just gets super drunk and go beat up a gaffer.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
Who wouldn't want to do that?
Well,
but his character was the super sensitive Native American tracker kind of guy. I loved his character.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's weird that he's like that in real life. I guess he's a good actor.
I was going to say that's
he was
what
acting to be
all
good.
about.
He was acting really well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have 2 questions for you, Matt, before we get on forward.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. First has nothing to do with the movie. I'm dying to know how you picked ThoughtFly for the name of your production company.
Okay, so to make this the shortest version of this story, Brian and I worked at another production company here in Louisville for about 5 years, and that's how we became friends, and then we did overtime and all that, and he had ThoughtFly made up for, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but he was doing other movie reviews and stuff, because he had a website called Movie Chop Shop, and then he had ThoughtFly for another kind of segment of that. And when we were doing overtime, I had my company that I used as when I was in college, what I called all of my productions, they were called Almost Sober Productions. And then when we started our own company, we didn't feel like Almost Sober Productions was a quite cool enough name for doing commercial work. So we were like, oh, ThoughtFly doesn't sound like a bunch of alcoholics. So we went with that one, and that's kind of how that came about. And then it just kind of stuck with everything. After we did the first 2 movies, and when we started doing the commercial work, we just called everything ThoughtFly, and everybody always asks, and. So Brian actually came up with it, and I don't know the exact, because people are like, is it like a thought in your head, and like a fly, like the bug, or is it like thoughts flying around? And it's just, an ever mystery that nobody's ever figured out.
Okay. I'll have to remember to ask him next time. I won't remember. Nick, remind me to remember to ask.
I will put that in my Notes for Mary notebook and remind you to ask Brian about that when he's on the show again.
So basically, the short answer to that was ask Brian, because I don't know.
And that's a perfectly good answer, by the way.
It is, yes.
So what was your other one, Mary?
My other one was, why did you pick Predator?
Well, like my two favorite movies of all time are this and then Aliens, the James Cameron Aliens. And this was actually one of the very first movies I saw, because when it came, well, actually, I mean, I was born in 1982, so I didn't see it immediately when it came out, because I was very young. But I think I was 6 years old, so it was like, and my parents were going over to hang out with some friends, and, they were taking me with them, and they obviously knew, I was going to be bored because their friends didn't have any kids, so they stopped at, back then it was called a Red Giraffe Video, I think, back when the video stores, this was like even before Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. And like I said, my dad and I always used to watch Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and it pretty much had been out for a little while, and my dad saw like Arnold Schwarzenegger on the cover, and he had no idea what it was about. And then he was like, "Do you want to watch this like Arnold movie?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So they take me over, they're hanging out and having some drinks and stuff with their friends, and I'm sitting in their friend's living room watching Predator. And I remember when we, keep in mind I'm 6, and I remember like when they walked in, like, "Yeah, we got Matthew a movie and stuff," and my dad's friend's wife was like, "Oh, Predator, he's gonna watch You're gonna let him watch Predator?" And my dad's like, "Yeah, like," and I was sitting there watching it, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is so crazy," because it starts off it's just like like your typical kind of special forces Green Beret movie, and lots of shooting and killing drug dealers and stuff, and then all of a sudden there's this alien in it, and I remember for the first time I was like, "Whoa, it's like an alien." There's an alien movie and an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie put in one, and like that's really cool. And then I do recall the point when the Predator is like pulling one of the dude's spines out. I think my mom walked in and kind of saw that, and then I heard her go back into the kitchen. She was like, "What the hell is he watching in there? There's heads getting ripped off and all this stuff." And then like my dad comes back out and kind of hit stop. He's like, "Well, we're going back home," And then I ended up finishing it a year or so later and finally saw the whole thing. But that was kind of my first experience with it.
Wow.
And it just stuck with me ever since.
Well, yeah, getting spines ripped out when you're 6 years old would stick with you. Wow.
Yeah, well, some people would say that's trauma. Some people would say that's entertainment. But, I think that's pretty cool, though.
Well, it kind of gives you like a facet. Because, I mean, my parents were always pretty lenient about watching R-rated movies and stuff like that, which the weird thing was, and I guess this is how, like, sort of society has changed a little bit in a way. Because, like, if it was like super bloody and gory or scary, no, it was like, okay, yeah, you like, is that cool? You scared? No, okay, keep watching. If like boobs came on, it was like the VCR got stopped, and it was like the conversation shifted. So like, what'd you do today? And it was like fast forwarding until there weren't any boobs on again. We're like, I look at that now, and like with my kids, I'm like, I'd much rather them just see some boobs for a second than somebody getting their spine ripped out. I mean, that seems a lot healthier behavior to understand what's going on, But that was just sort of like the 80s parent sort of mentality of stuff, It's like, oh yeah, that's fine, that's make believe. And another thing it kind of did, kind of what Nick touched on, and because I also watched Aliens at a young age and Die Hard and all that stuff, and more so, I mean, there was an element of fear because I was young, but it also kind of made me think, like, how'd they do that? Like this Predator, like that. I know that's just a guy in a suit, but like, how'd they get that suit to look so real and like the eyes to look so good and all this stuff? And that's kind of one thing that kind of led to my fascination with movies in general. Just kind of like wondering, like, how'd they do that, or how is this done this way? And that's kind of what led me to get into film, is violent Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
So, and there you go.
Oh, okay.
And just as a segue, we managed to, when we were doing loss prevention, one of our named celebrities was Vernon Wells, who worked with Schwarzenegger in the movie Commando. So
yes, he did.
We had that going on too. So that was a pretty cool little thing when he kind of agreed to do the film, and it was because it was kind of like that tie back to like my 80s childhood, because that was another favorite Arnold movie of mine too, just because it's so ridiculous. And his character in it's ridiculous, and I say ridiculous in an amazing way, but that was just kind of how those movies were, because these movies back then, really, I would say really until like Terminator 2 came out, like the sort of big, well, now they're considered big budget action movies, but like those movies back then were sort of like the B movies in a way. Because even, like when Predator came out, it wasn't like the whole family got in the car and they went and saw Predator. It was like dad and his friend and the sons come along, and like that's their night out to go, watch big muscly dudes shoot up the forest, I mean, and now they've evolved into what we have now, like The Rock doing all of his movies and like the Fast and the Furious movies, where now they are sort of a mainstream kind of family event. But back then they were. It was just kind of like the dudes going out and having a dude night and hanging out.
Yeah, it was more like a cult kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, you can't get much more duty than this movie, no pun intended. I mean, it was
no, for sure.
I mean, it was testosterone from the go, and I have to say, the scene where Bill Duke starts shooting the minigun into the forest after Ventura's character is killed, and everybody else comes running up, and they all start shooting into the forest, and you have like a solid minute and a half of nothing but machine gun fire, and they're even stopping to reload. I mean, I don't think anybody had ever done a scene like that before, even. Just mowing down the forest. I mean, relentlessly. And, somewhere I know there was a Greenpeace and, a couple of environmentalists just bursting into tears immediately. But I still got to say that is one of my favorite bits.
And you cannot duplicate the original. You can't. Nobody's ever tried to duplicate that, I don't think. And at least if they have, it hadn't nearly been as cool. And that was slightly motivated for the plot, because they shot all that bullets, and then they're like, "How is this thing still alive?" And that's when Arnold realizes that it's using the trees, and they weren't shooting up; they were just shooting straight forward. And that's so it did have a slight bit of motivation to helping them defeat the Predator towards the end.
Wow. And I hadn't picked up on that, actually. That's good. I mean, I picked up that's how he figured out.
All these years, you just thought they were wasting all that ammo to look cool, and it turned out it actually solved an issue for them to help defeat the Predator.
Yeah, and it only took... Oh, by the way, folks, spoiler alert. If you haven't... Okay, and I'm gonna pause for a second, because I want to go way back to when Mary introduced the movie to something she said. She said, it's kind of a newer film.
Well,
this was 1987, Mary.
But for the movies we do, they're usually pre-70s, early 70s and earlier.
Okay, now that I'll buy, but I mean, you can't really say it's a newer film when it's old, when it's almost old enough to be elected president. Okay. That's you know what? Predator is going to run for president in 2024. That's that's my campaign.
Only if it's the alien.
What?
The alien I'd vote for.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah. He'd be giving a speech and it'd just be like, he'd just like make that little clicky noise and,
clicky click.
We need a translator or something, I guess. But
get up in front of Congress, the little red lights come on when somebody's bad mouthing him.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of an awesome bit of governing right there, I'm going to say it. But, okay, you know what else, though, Mary? It just occurred to me that we forgot. We just went straight on into things.
Yes.
Did we have a contest?
Yes, we did.
Oh, my God. And what was the answer to the contest, Mary?
Let's see. The answer was Soylent Green, 1973. And we had a lot of people answer that one. See? It's your fault, Nick, that we don't get a lot of people answering sometimes, because they just can't pick out the movies.
Okay, Mary, you complain when I make it too hard. You complain when I make it too easy. Is there some mystical, there's one movie I can put out there that you'll go, oh, that was perfect, but you won't tell me what it is.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Okay, fair enough. So,
My secret. Okay. Let's see. We had a lot of entries, and our first movie was donated by Patrick Kelly. Love you, Patrick. It's a DVD from 1972 called Slaughterhouse 5. Pat says it's based on the classic Kurt Vonnegut novel. This film was directed by George Roy Hill. The main character is Billy Pilgrim, who becomes unstuck in time and relives periods of his life in random order. Kind of feels like me. Okay, and the winner is Karen Zlunkwitz. Yay!
Oh, Karen won.
All right.
Good deal.
Yay. Okay, so you're going to get the Patrick Kelly movie. And our second movie has been donated by Daryl Majeski from the owner and editor of Scream Magazine. The movie is called The Perfect House from 2013.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch this one.
No, it's a pretty fun little movie, though. I like it.
The premise is a young couple's dream house turns into a house of horrors when the disturbing violent acts of 3 generations of doomed families is reawakened for them to witness. It's an indie horror film and has been described as a horror film's wet dream by Twisted Central. Yeah, I'm not going to watch this one, but... And the winner is, let's see, Mike Scherderlo. Congratulations, Mike. I will get this in the mail as soon as possible. And our third prize is the Boom Beep Boom.
Okay, English, Mary. Use your words.
Use your mouth. B-Movie Cast Koozie. And the winner is Matt Kowalski.
All right.
Yay. So that's it. I'll get the stuff in the mail as soon as possible. And congratulations.
Now, I do have to say, with Matt Kowalski's love of beer, I think the koozie is possibly the most appropriate winner of a koozie.
It was destiny.
He needs them. Yes.
It was. By the way, Matt, anybody who wins like 10 B-movie koozies in a row gets a free car from Mary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Nick.
You should advertise that more.
Oh, well, we do, but, I think Mary's dreading because I think I was talking to Nick Stumpf, and he won a koozie last episode, and that was number 8 for him.
Oh, man, he's getting up quick. Now,
Yeah.
when you say win a car, are you specific? Like, is it like a remote-controlled car or a Hot Wheels car, or is it like a Toyota Prius?
It isn't.
I just leave it a mystery. Just leave it a mystery. Just send it to him.
I was going to say, we're going to leave it a mystery, but it will definitely be something that could arrive in the mail.
It will have 4 wheels and roll.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. So what have you guys been doing? Before we get into the movie, what have you been watching? What have you been doing?
It's funny because we were just talking about Army of the Dead.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing I've watched recently was Army of the Dead.
Where'd you watch it?
Netflix, because, I could have gone out to a movie, but I've forgotten how. It's like, wait, you can go somewhere other than the living room and watch a movie? Does that happen? Oh, my God. So, I've got to get back in the habit because it never occurred to me to actually go to the theater and see it.
Yeah, I know.
And that's kind of bad, but at the same time, I also kind of didn't want to pay for a movie I can watch on Netflix. So,
yeah, and that one for sure is a good Netflix watch because it's a lot of fun. It's entertaining. I think just because at least, and this is just my personal opinion, I'm sure a lot of people disagree, but like I said, a lot of fun, lots of good zombie deaths and stuff. I felt it had a lot of plot holes, and I was a little kind of underwhelmed with it. Like it wasn't like the epic, amazing zombie thing that I was hoping Zack Snyder would make.
Aww.
Yeah. And I actually have to agree with Matt, and that's why I decided to bring it up, because I do feel like the film had a whole lot of hype. And, usually Zack Snyder, I'm usually very impressed with his work. And this one, I kind of watched it, and I was like, yeah, I'm glad we didn't pay $20 to go see this. I mean, it was worth seeing on Netflix. I don't feel
Nick,
cheated
now,
for my time.
I know you. Not sorry to interrupt you, but I know you get this reference. To me, now that I'm thinking about it, it was sort of like a really well done Ghosts of Mars.
Oh my God!
Like
you are so
because
right.
like the lead zombie people in it were sort of like the things on Ghost of Mars, but like it was a lot cooler looking and stuff like that. And it kind of had that like kind of weird kind of vibe going. Like he had a cool idea, like, oh, this is like a different take on zombies and stuff like that. And it worked. Like it definitely didn't suck. Like anybody who's listening, I don't want to be like, oh, Matt's saying it sucks, 'cause it doesn't suck at all. But it was just not the roller coaster ride I was hoping it was going to be.
Are they dumb zombies? Are they the stupid zombies?
There's to not give any spoilers, it's sort of there's like the dumb zombies, but then there's like a sort of hierarchy that there's like smarter, more developed zombies.
Okay.
Yeah, and, that's the thing. I went into it imagining that this was going to be one of those genre redefining movies, when Dawn of the Dead came out, and then you had 28 Days Later, and then you had, The Walking Dead came out and redefined it yet again. And I just didn't feel this was, even though they came up with some good ideas, I didn't feel it redefined anything,
Okay.
So... but I did enjoy watching Las Vegas just totally get trashed.
I do think it can take the award for the longest zombie movie that's ever been made.
Yeah, that was pretty. It was what, 2 hours and 20
2 hours
minutes?
and 35 minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh wow, 35 minutes. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of zombie movie, and it did have Dave Bautista in it. So,
and that's probably the best acting I've seen him do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he is I'm going to say the best acting I've seen him do was probably Blade Runner 2047.
That's a good call. Yes, he actually talked about how that is what opened up roles for him, is not just being the big, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of character.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, he only was in that for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So... Whereas in this one, Army of the Dead, he actually gets a significant amount of screen time because he's the lead, and it was interesting. Now I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the actress that played the helicopter pilot.
She's a stand-up comedian, and I can also not think I can look it up real quick, but she was really good, and she actually got replaced last minute. Because the actor who originally played that, they actually shot the whole thing, and then all these sort of sexual assault charges came out against him, so they cut him out of the movie completely, and then they cast her in that role because they were doing a podcast like we're doing now, and it was Dave Bautista and that actor on there.
Ella Purnell.
Yes, and Dave Bautista was like, "Hey, it's nice to finally meet you," because they never even spoke to each other during the filming because it happened way after.
And I really thought that was interesting because there are at least 3 scenes in the movie where they're standing there talking to each other.
That's just your shot reverse shot, man. You know how that works.
Yeah. Oh, I know, but it's very interesting to see that because remember there was an argument when the movie Heat came out. Because that had Robert De Niro and, who else was in that with him?
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino. And there was this whole thing that people were saying that Robert De Niro and Al Pacino never actually acted together. And they were never on set at the same time because they couldn't stand each other. And so that was kind of an urban legend that went around that they had just both filmed their scenes completely separate from each other and never met. By the way, that's not the case, but if you look it up, that was
the urban legend.
Yeah, that was kind of the Hollywood urban legend was that they never filmed a scene together. So, I think
the biggest thing to bring up about Army of the Dead is it ain't Predator.
No, it ain't Predator. So Mary,
that's our segue back to Predator.
That is our segue back to Predator. So, cool. So, Mary, what did you think of Predator? I mean, overall, which,
I liked it. I did. I loved the special effects.
Yeah.
Because I think the first time I saw the movie, even though it was called Predator, it didn't seem to have a lot of Predator in it. So to me, it was just a shooty, army guy shoot movie. And that didn't impress me. But I liked the idea that I didn't know ahead of time that there was actually that the alien was killing, like it was a hunt for him.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that until like midway through the movie, because then I didn't know it when I started watching the movie. So now that I know the story behind it, it makes the movie better for me.
Yeah, and that was one of the cool things about that, and I touched on this a little bit earlier. It's, usually with any, let's just say any monster movie in general, because I mean that's essentially what this is. Usually the monster is just this sort of like animalistic thing that eats people and runs around, and where in this movie the monster actually sort of has, it's highly intelligent, and it can like toy with them, and because there's actually a couple, you can look these up on YouTube, there's a couple cutscenes in it after Poncho, which is the guy who had the big sort of minigun look, or like grenade launcher cannon thing. Mm-hmm. Like after he gets killed at the end, and then the girl runs off, and Arnold's like kind of by himself. There's a scene that they cut before he falls down the like slippery mudslide into the waterfall, where he's like sort of hiding, and the Predator is like toying with him. Like it's shooting its laser and stuff at him, but like it's intentionally missing because it's just kind of like wants him to know that it knows where he is, and like he's like a worthy adversary. Mm-hmm. And those actually got cut, and I see why they cut them, because it really didn't add like a whole lot to the plot, because I mean most people at that point in the movie kind of figured that out, but just showing like they did have this sort of thought process back there, like this was like a highly intelligent being that's developed weapons, like technology to fly to Earth and stuff like that, as opposed to like the aliens from Alien, they're almost just sort of like these, giant insect things that just kill and eat, and like that's their only motivation, where this is like taking trophies and hunting and, trying to outsmart the people it's hunting and stuff.
Mm-hmm. It was a really unique take on an alien. You hadn't seen that before. You never even thought about it before. I hadn't.
Yeah, and the look of the Predator actually came up from James Cameron, actually, because Stan Winston did all the effects on this movie, and he was sort of, in my opinion, like the greatest special effects person ever. I mean, he did everything: Aliens, Jurassic Park, Predator, Pumpkinhead. I mean, he just did any of like the iconic monsters, Terminator. All those things are things that he did, and because when we were talking earlier about Jean-Claude Van Damme being in the movie, and like the Predator sort of looked like this big bug thing that had these big tusks and stuff like that, and James Cameron and Stan Winston this was right after they did Aliens, because Aliens came out the year before, and they were like flying on a plane, and I guess Stan Winston was talking to James Cameron like, yeah, there's this other alien movie coming up, I'm doing this, and James Cameron's like, you know what, I always wanted to see a monster with mandibles. And then that's sort of how the Predator's face got born out of that. Like Stan Winston started sketching stuff, and then he did the mandibles, and then the dreadlocks kind of came into play, and and that was kind of history, how it all kind of came up.
Didn't Cameron see a photo or something in the office with somebody with dreadlocks?
He saw something, and that whole conversation just kind of led to Stan Winston kind of come up with that design and something, and that's something, and even that I would agree with too. Sort of, they stuck with it in Predator 2, but after that, like all the Predator movies after that, like they kept changing the face.
Oh,
and it just kept getting more and more goofy looking, and I mean that's something people online talk about all the time, because like the first Predator, like it looks incredibly realistic, it's scary, and then like if you fast forward to like Alien versus Predator, like the one that came out in 2004, when the Predator takes off his masks, like it no longer has the sort of reptilian looking eyes. It has like more human eyes, and the mouth is a lot bigger. And I know what they were trying to do, like being like, that they have more technology with animatronics. They were probably trying to make it look more real and have it move different, but it just kind of looked like a big, like it almost looked like a sad emotional Predator or something. It just didn't have the same fear factor as like the one from '87.
And I hate emo predators. I mean,
yeah, emo predator sucks, man.
They do. It does. I mean, he's always just sitting there wearing nothing but black, looking all sad. I mean, listening to The Cure. I mean, it's rough.
Yeah.
But no, I see what you're saying about that, and it's funny you mentioned that because I was trying to watch Predator again, and every time I would put it in to my streaming service, The Predator kept coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't want The Predator. I absolutely do not want The Predator. And that's you talk about a series that has gone full circle from being amazing to being a really, 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 really overpriced bad B movie. That is The Predator.
I think most everybody would agree with you on that. I mean, trust me, I love this franchise and the Alien franchise as much as most people love like Star Wars. I mean, it's my favorite. Yeah. I mean, they could be like, hey, this Predator movie, the plot is a Predator takes a dump in a box, and I'll pay you $12 to go see it just because I love Predators that much.
Yep.
But to your point, yes, the Predator was definitely the weakest link in the chain in the franchise for sure. And they were this, I know studios when they do stuff, it's like they try to open it up to like bigger audiences and stuff like that, which is why, they had like the little boy with autism or whatever in there that like figured out, and like I get that they're trying to open it up to like a bigger crowd, but it just, fans want to see the Predator walking around killing stuff, I mean that's what it is, and they want to see like what new cool weapons it has and all this stuff, and that was like, and Shane Black, who played Hawkins in the first Predator, which we're talking about now, he wrote and directed that, and I had a lot of high hopes for it, and it just kind of fizzled out really quick.
Yeah, and that was the thing, and that's why I brought it up partially, because Shane Black, who, the joke is that Shane Black was in it because they were afraid they might need script rewrites during production, and so they got a screenwriter to be one of the commandos. But, and I don't know how true that is, but I will say I was disappointed by his take on The Predator, and that was just sad.
Is he doing the new one, The Skull?
No, that's a different director. That one is, at least from what I've read online, that one's going to actually take place in like, I think it's like Native American times.
Yeah.
And there's like a female Native American warrior, like sort of on her like warrior rite of passage thing, and she ends up fighting a predator and stuff like that, which I'm curious as to see where they go with it, because sort of, one thing, in the first Predator, there was no mythology behind the Predator. It was just like, it's an alien, it's here to kill you. And the second movie, it's an alien's here to kill you. And then once the Alien vs. Predator movies came out, they sort of developed this thing where like, so in Alien vs. Predator, for example, they're going to Earth to fight or to kill the aliens to like, that's like the Predator's rite of passage, like their manhood rituals, which means like essentially the Predators in Alien vs. Predator are like teenagers, proving their rite of passage, which would mean in the first Predator and the second Predator, those are almost like children predators, like they're like almost like preteens, like showing that they can go out and kill humans because humans are easy to kill, and that's one of the things that like as more movies came out, that sort of mythology built up and stuff like that, and that came from the comic books and stuff like that as well, as where that all kind of developed.
Yeah. And Mary, I don't know how many of the Predator films you've seen or the Alien franchise.
I saw the first two, and then after that second one, it just kind of wore off.
Okay. Well, and, this goes back to what Matt's talking about, though. There's a whole... Okay, at the very end of Predator 2, and okay, folks, I'm going to pause again and say some spoiler alert stuff here, but honestly, it's 30 years after Predator 2 came out. Okay, if
that came out in what, like 91? Like, if you haven't seen it, like,
just pause the podcast and go watch the movie and come back, okay? Mm-hmm. So, at the end of Predator 2, there's a scene where Danny Glover pursues the Predator onto its spaceship. And while it's in the spaceship, he sees a trophy case. And there's all these different alien skulls in there, but one of the most prominent skulls that you notice is the skull of an alien from James Cameron's movie Alien and
Alien. Xenomorph.
And so, yeah, Xenomorph. So what they've done is they merged the two genres there with that one little scene. And then Dark Horse Comics back in the early 90s released a whole series of comics about Alien versus Predator.
And then they made
really
a couple video games as well after that. Atari Jaguar had the first one, I believe.
Yep.
And then there was a couple of PC games that came out as well.
And, okay, you've been playing, there's actually a Predator game
Predator Hunting
out
Grounds?
right now. Yeah, Hunting Grounds. So you've been playing that. How is it, Matt?
A lot of people hate it because it's just, I mean, it's a multiplayer game, so there's no, and that's the thing people bitch about the most is like there's no story mode, but I mean, literally it's 5 of your friends, so there's 4 humans who are the commando people, and then one person's the predator, and then, much like the first movie, as the humans, you just go into like a drug dealer camp and you shoot people and blow stuff up, and then the predator starts killing you over the course of the level. So it's literally, it's just a deathmatch game. But being a fan of the movie and also a fan of those type of games, like I have a blast with it. Like, I mean, I haven't played it in a while, but I mean, I was playing it like every night. I mean, I feel like it's powered by the Unreal Engine, so the mechanics in it work really well. The guns are all, you can upgrade the guns. It's really cool and stuff like that. And plus, like, they do one thing that I think makes a good video game is like when you pay homage to like the movies, and that can be in multiple ways. Obviously how things look is one thing, but one of the biggest things that I think in that movie that's really cool is like all of the sound effects for like all of the Predator weapons and stuff they pulled like from the movie. So, it really kind of takes you back, like when you hear like that laser sight go off, or you hear the plasma cannon, or the disc fire up. Like, it's really cool.
And, okay, I've got one more question about the mechanics. So when you're playing with your friends, so you got 5 people, and you're in the waiting room, I guess, waiting for the launch of the match. Do you know at that point who's going to be the predator?
Yeah, so if you have, like, okay, so if you have 5 people who, like if you're playing with 5 people, then it will randomly pick somebody to be the predator. Like if you already have 5 friends that you're playing with, then one person gets to be the predator. Where if you have 4 or less, then you choose like if you want to be the predator or you want to be the fire team, which I usually always do the fire team just because I just have a lot more fun trying to kill the predator than being the predator. Also because being the predator is also really hard because it's like you can like run around through the trees, and there's a lot more kind of 3D moves and stuff you can do. And basically, I like being the humans because I suck at being the predator. Is my short answer to that. But it's still a really fun game, and like I said, I really like playing it. And like I said, a lot of people are hating on it, but I was really pleased with it.
Okay, cool. And I'm partially asking because I'm thinking about, now that it's been out a while, I'm thinking about getting it because I'm too cheap to buy most games when they first come out. So,
well, hell, man, you can probably get it for like $15 now. We could play tonight.
Exactly. I'm just saying. See, and what's funny is Mary thinks we're kidding. But
wow.
But, and by the way, Mary, one of the other things, in case you hadn't noticed, Predator has become very pervasive in pop culture. I mean, you've got the books, you've got comic books, you've got the movies, you've got multiple video games. And my favorite thing for any R-rated film are all the Predator action figures. Because it's good to have action figures for kids for R-rated movies. So,
and that's the thing, just to touch on, going back to, like, we were talking about sort of like the golden age of action movies and stuff like that, because, that didn't really happen until after Terminator 2, because Terminator 2 was sort of like that box office huge action movie that segued like everybody in the house to like, oh wow, this is a great movie, like we all have to go see that. Because I remember, I don't remember seeing, and I mean they might have been around, but like as far as mainstream, I don't remember seeing like R-rated action movie toys until that came out. Because I remember after Terminator 2 came out, like they had all the Terminator dudes, and they had like the T-1000 that would blow apart and stuff like that. Nowadays, obviously they make action figures out of everything. They make the Thing action figures and, like Halloween and all that stuff. But like back, at least to my knowledge, and I mean, I was a pretty avid toy person back in the late 80s, early 90s. Like, I don't recall like any R-rated movie until Terminator 2 came out that did that. But then that sort of segued into like, oh, people buy these things. I remember in the early 90s, then the Alien and Predator figures came out. I think after Alien 3 probably came out, that's when they started making those too, because, the toy company was like, oh, like people will buy these and spend money on these.
I think you may be right, although I have a really disturbing memory of some Aliens toys. And
Yeah.
I say disturbing because I just remember the movie Aliens was just very dark and gritty, and I mean the color palette for it was just different shades of gray.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was just a dark movie, and yet I distinctly remember these extremely bright and cheerfully colored Aliens toys, and they had all the Space Marines from Aliens, and
Nick,
they
I don't
were
mean to
brightly colored.
I think those came out after Alien 3, because those are the ones like the packaging. It was like the blue packaging with the alien face in the top left corners. Are those the ones you're referencing?
Yes, that's them.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, those came out after Alien 3. Because I remember I was in middle school when those came out, and I remember being at Toys R Us back when those were a thing, and be like, oh my God, they make Alien, because they made like the Power Loader and the Queen Alien, and they had a Bull Alien and all that stuff.
Okay.
Are those the ones you're talking about?
That is exactly what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
and thank you for putting it in time reference for me.
Oh,
Because
no problem.
I was totally like, I remember those things existing.
Yeah,
but I
actually
just
still
couldn't
have
tell
a
you
couple
when.
of those sitting in a box somewhere in my house. They might be worth something now. I should look that up.
Yeah, you should look at that. They might be worth at least $4 or $5 each.
Right, yeah.
Okay, I'll say this. I never know what's going to be worth money with regards to collectible toys. So, I instead of putting all my money into stocks, I put all my money into, toys from Last Action Hero, and now I'm broke. So,
Well,
that's
and
beside-
that's a good segue back to Predator, because that was directed by John McTiernan, and I feel like Predator was probably his kind of first big break as like a big budget movie that made good money.
Yeah, and it did make good money, because the budget for the film was about $18 million, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
And it pulled in almost 100.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because
So-
I'm looking at it right now. So that was sort of his first big, because he did Predator, then the next year he did Die Hard, then he did
Yeah.
Hunt for the Red October, then he did Medicine Man, which I remember being pretty cool, and then Last Action Hero, which I think is amazing, bombed at the box office. And then he did the Die Hard with a Vengeance, which I think is awesome, and then he kind of went downhill after that one. But yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because, I think Last Action Hero is very underrated also. So, that one's... but I do have to say he did that terrible, terrible remake of Rollerball. And, so...
that was actually the second to last movie he directed. I'm looking at his IMDb right now, and it's Rollerball, and then a movie called Basic, which I have no idea what that is, and then that was in 2003, and he's just been balls up from there.
Well, and God love him, I'm surprised that he did anything after Rollerball, to be honest.
Yeah.
He's
as a director too, looking at Predator, and actually look. Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for the Red October, and Die Hard with a Vengeance, and Last Action Hero, like, he had a good vibe for, like, action and throwing some comedy in there to keep it light. You know what I mean? Because Predator, for the most part, Predator is, like, very serious, but, you got, I mean, if you have Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, you got to throw, like, one or two one-liners in there, which, he has to stick around. And, when he, like, throws the machete and pins the guy to the to the post and stuff like that, and busts in and shoots a dude with a grenade launcher, like knock knock, So I mean, like, you got to have that, but like, other than that, like, he kept it pretty serious, and that was why I was kind of going back. Is I feel like Predator is one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's probably more shining moments as an actor, because like, you did see, like, and I say this with throwing a grain of salt, but like, you saw like a slight bit of depth to him a little bit, you know, like as he figures out like how the Predator works and figures out that like, you know, his buddy played by Carl Weathers kind of screwed him over and the mission and stuff like that. You know, like much more than like if you look at like Total Recall, which I also think is an awesome movie, but like that's just totally over the top, like the classic, like that Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's kind of where that came out, you know, and Predator's kind of more just like it's just a serious good action movie or a sci-fi action movie, you know, and I mean that's why I kind of have always held Predator as like probably one of his best achievements as far as in acting, because I mean, you know, you look at him, if you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger's sort of resume as a whole, you know, like I mean, I kind of feel like his last hurrah that was awesome was probably True Lies, you know, and then kind of after that, I think he himself wanted to be like, oh, I want to like try to do these, you know, like get into more of these deeper roles, you know, try to figure out these characters. And you know, and then like he started doing like what was it, End of Days, and the Sixth Day where he was a clone, and it, you know, it just like he sort of, I think, stretched himself, because I feel like, you know, as an artist you kind of have to, and trust me, I'm not trying to judge Arnold Schwarzenegger because I think he's amazing, but you kind of have to know your game a little bit and know what you can do and what you can't do. And I think he tried to start stretching himself a bit too far, and that's kind of when the movies started losing it.
When did he become governor?
That was 2003, I think, because
I was still in college. So yeah, it had to be like 2003, 2004.
Okay,
and the only reason I was going to say the only reason I knew that kind of off the top of my head is because he became governor in a special recall election. And California is getting ready to have another special recall election. So
do they have total recall?
Yeah. So there's a chance. But hey, you know what? They could do worse than having him as governor again. Actually.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: after his stint as governor, when he kind of got back into acting. And now, bear in mind, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a super, super savvy business person.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he made a lot of people don't know, like, he was actually a millionaire before he made his first movie off of real estate.
Yeah. That's it. And when he has made money, he has not squandered it.
No.
I mean, the dude is extremely savvy in business. And you know, you can't smoke a cigar the way he smokes a cigar and not be a little bit of the Monopoly guy with the monocle.
Yeah. You know, well, because I actually, his autobiography is actually really, really interesting because what he talks about, you know, like obviously bodybuilding is what got his start. And, you know, when he came to America, he was this bodybuilder. He could like barely speak English. And, you know, he kept winning these competitions. And I don't remember who he was talking to, but his best friend was a guy named Franco Colombo, who was also a bodybuilder. And basically what they did in the 70s, they took like all the money they made from bodybuilding and bought apartments in Los Angeles. And they sort of, you know, in the early 70s, you know, they owned several apartment complexes, and, you know, that funded other things. And so, yeah, I mean, he's always been a very, very savvy businessman. He's never, you know, gone out and, you know, done, you know, stupid stuff with money, and he's always invested it well. And I mean, that's, you know, the movies were almost like a secondary thing once he became a popular actor. And then, you know, he was the highest paid actor in the early 90s for stuff.
Yeah, because
but then he divorced Maria Shriver.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah. I mean, I look back at those pictures of his maid, and I'm just like, well, he must have just had like an appetite that couldn't be satisfied sexually. Because if you look at her and then thinking of like, because I mean, I think he's been with Brigitte Nielsen as well, and it's like, if he was just at home one day and saw that maid walking around and was like, okay, you know, it's like, really, dude, like, come on, you know, like, that was a bad decision.
He suddenly announces, "Get to the choppa," and next thing you know, there they go. So, sorry, I had to make it get to the chopper reference at some point because this is the movie that coined it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh yeah.
But his governor stint, though, his acting, I think he just kind of said, you know what, I'm just going to do stuff that I want to do for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some of his stuff he's done in the last 5 or 10 years has been some of his best performances. I mean, what was it, Maggie?
The zombie movie?
Yeah, the zombie movie where he's the dad and his daughter's been bit.
Yeah.
And he has to deal with that. That's an amazingly good movie, and it has nothing to do with any of his muscles.
Yeah.
There was Killing Gunther or something like that, which was just a really stupid movie, but it was funny. And he was very funny in that also. So, and I've just seen him pop up in a lot of very interesting roles in the past 5 or 10 years. So,
well, and I think doing new stuff for him would be better because, like, one thing I heard they're making a Twins 3, which like, and there's supposed to be there's rumor they're making another Conan, and part of me it's like, man, just let that part go. Like, just be the old Conan, be the old Julius from Twins. Like, don't try to resurrect that,
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Definitely be Conan from the throne at the end of Conan the Barbarian. Don't be trying to do something new with it. But anyway, now there were other people in this movie, though, right?
Yeah, we have Carl Weathers, who obviously he was a huge actor, action star actor back then, and he actually had a really cool. He was actually one of my favorite characters in that because he kind of had the biggest sort of character development where he realized the errors of his ways and then wanted to help, and and then he sort of everybody sort of sacrifices themselves except for Arnold at the end because they all die, but he kind of had that moment where it's like, okay, I put you all in this situation, this is all my fault, I'm gonna go fix it. And then he gets his arm blown off and gets skewered by the Predator. But he went out like a badass, man, and I appreciate that.
He went out like a total badass, and I gotta say he gets his arm blown off, and then he is still conscious enough and badass enough that he tries to get the other machine gun out with his left arm.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh no, I've lost an arm, I better just do it with this one. It doesn't help, but
Didn't he start out in blaxploitation movies?
I think
a long time ago. Friday Foster and something called Bucktown.
No, he started his acting back in the 70s with one of the early ones. He was in Magnum Force, which was a Clint Eastwood film. But he did the Four Deuces, but his big thing though was he was Apollo Creed in Rocky.
Yeah, that was the thing I kind of remember him from, because I remember watching Predator and be like, oh, it's Apollo.
Yep. But if you now one of his other roles that I liked, if you've ever seen the movie The Guns of the Navarone, well, there was a sequel to that made in the 70s, and that was called Force 10 from Navarone, and he's actually in that as Sergeant Weaver, and he was pretty good in that film too, and that's a little bit of an underrated World War II flick, which the biggest problem with the Force 10 from Navarone is that they tried to make a sequel to The Guns of the Navarone, and they should have just made it a completely different movie on its own, because it didn't have any of the original cast, because it was shot, 20 years later. So, but he was in that, and he went on. I mean, he did 4 of the Rocky films, and now he's in
Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's true. Now he's in, and my God, what a complete sci-fi arc that guy's had.
Yeah.
You end up in a Star Wars franchise. So there you go. But if nothing else, he'll definitely have lots to do at conventions if he wants to.
Oh yeah, he's been in some of the biggest franchises of all time,
Yeah. Well, and I mean it's his character's son that's now the Rocky movies, which are the Creed films now.
Yeah, those hold up, man. I mean, well, okay, so if we're talking about this is a bit of sidetrack here for a second, but like if we're talking about like the iconic 80s action movie stars, which would be Arnold and Sylvester, right? Like, I feel like 80s wise, Arnold had like the better movies, but as far as like acting chops, like holding up, dude, Sylvester Stallone's doing some good stuff nowadays, man.
Yes, he is.
Like, yeah, I mean, like those new Rocky movies are really good. Like the new Rambos were the Rambo Last Blood was a little bit of a stretch, but like the Rambo before John Rambo, like that one was like brutal, dude. Like that scene where he turns around with like that 50 cal and just blows that dude into liquid who's sitting in the back of that like Jeep and then like kills like all the bad guy. Like that movie was crazy. I was just like, oh my god, this is nuts, Like, I mean, and he's definitely, I feel like, has a little bit more chops than Arnold does for sure. Which I hate saying because like Arnold's like sort of like one of my favorites, but I got to pay credit where credit's due.
No, that's a good observation, and I tell you, and okay, Mary, in the last episode, did I do the story about Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone?
No.
Okay, I wanted to check because this is one I wanted to try and bring up. And funny enough, we are doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and Matt brought up Sylvester Stallone, so I can do this little story. Okay. So rumor has it that back in the late 80s, during the action film craze, there was a bit of a rivalry going on between Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And bear in mind that they became business partners with Bruce Willis in the whole Planet Hollywood thing. So this wasn't a real dark kind of competitiveness. This was more good-natured, I think. Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger got handed a script for a movie called Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. And he read it. And he thought, this is the worst script I've ever read. There's no way I would do this. And then that little devil popped up on his shoulder and said, why don't you act like you want to do it? And then maybe Sylvester Stallone will take it. And he was like, aha. And so he actually made it publicly known that he was considering doing this movie. And he actually went on a couple of talk shows and talked about, well, I've got this project coming up, and I may be doing it. I'm really excited about it. It's called Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. And then when he actually went into the studio to negotiate it, he set his price so astronomically high that there was no way they could afford him. I mean, he was saying something like $40 million to do this movie. And they were like, sorry, we can't afford you. But then Sylvester Stallone had heard about this, and so he got his agent to get in touch with them, and he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And if you ever watch Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, you will understand why it was a joke for Arnold Schwarzenegger to get Sylvester Stallone to do that movie.
That's hilarious. I had no idea that was the story behind that, because that movie is terrible.
It is absolutely terrible, and apparently the whole thing is that it was a joke for Arnold Schwarzenegger to get Sylvester Stallone to do it. So, there you go. And all that came off of Carl Weathers, by the way. So.
And we digress.
I'm lost. I've lost track of everything now. Okay.
I'm always lost, so don't worry about it, Mary.
Okay.
But now, one of the other big guys that was in this, and I mean that as in terms of physically big, but also he was kind of well known, obviously, was Jesse Ventura. What's so funny about Jesse Ventura, Mary?
I'm okay. You know me. I don't like giant men like that.
Well,
so Mary, so who were you like rooting for in the movie? Like, did you have a favorite of the Commando guys?
Oh no. Well, I liked the guy, the Indian.
Billy.
Native, yeah, I liked him.
Yeah, you like Billy.
But not because of his body, but because of, the whole native tracker thing and that kind of stuff. But
well, and he sort of had like a grounded root of, like, because he was the first guy who kind of figured out like what they were kind of getting into.
Yeah.
Like he was everybody else was just like, like, because I mean I think Carl was like, a bunch of guys and tracking us behind the corners of not, and he was the one who was like, no, there's something out there waiting for us, and it ain't no man,
Yeah. I like Bruce Lee body type. If a guy's going to have muscles, he has to look like Bruce Lee, not.
Okay, so like the more kind of thinner, ripped kind of guy, not the big, huge like.
So this was a whole movie of the big, huge guys, and it's like, meh.
Well, not all of them were big and huge.
Yeah, Poncho wasn't huge. He was he was pretty normal sized.
Well, that's true. He didn't last long though.
He definitely wasn't. And then and who was it? Hawkins. He was just about as skinny as you could get.
They totally played it. Well, and that's how you kind of knew he was going to be the first dude to die, because like they played him up as like the computer nerd who was in the military or something. It's like, what's his job? To radio in and then get killed.
Yeah,
red
radio in and then get killed.
He was a red shirt.
Yeah. Well, and again, there was kind of that joke that he was actually known as a screenwriter, and the joke was that they had him in the team because they might need rewrites to the script at some point.
Yeah. I read
and
that he was writing the screenplay for The Last Boy Scout while he was on the set.
Yeah, and bear in mind, I think he got like $1.8 million for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he got, I want to say it was $4 million for The Long Kiss Goodnight. And both of those did not do as well as they hoped they would.
Yeah.
And, but he's written some very, very good films. I mean, and he's also directed some pretty good. Okay, for example, he did The Nice Guys. And I really liked The Nice Guys, which he wrote and directed, and that was kind of a throwback to his early work, which his first big film was Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
He did that series. I'm sorry?
Did he write it?
He wrote Lethal Weapon.
We're talking about Shane Black, right?
Yeah, Shane Black. Sorry, want to make sure we're on the same page. We're talking about the skinny computer guy that we knew was going to be the first to die with the glasses.
Oh, and he wrote Last Action Hero also.
Yeah. And the thing is, he apparently was very unhappy with Lethal Weapon 2 because he wanted Riggs to die at the end.
Oh, really?
And the studio said, we can't kill Riggs. We're going to make money.
We got to make 2 more movies.
At least 2 more movies.
To their credit, he does almost die. Like, there is that moment in that where you're like, oh, he's going to die, but then he doesn't die.
Yeah, he just doesn't die, which is, it's like, okay, well, you're tougher than all of us. But
oh, wow. So I'm looking at he wrote Monster Squad, too.
Yes. And, okay, here's another bit. He was roommates with, I'm trying to remember the name of the screenwriter who did Night of the Creeps, actually.
Fred Decker?
Yes, Fred Decker. He was roommates with him. And so that's why if you watch Night of the Creeps, there's a part in it where there's a poster for Monster Squad. Or no, wait, it's not a poster. It's graffiti on the wall in the bathroom. It says Monster Squad. And that was a nod to his buddy.
Ah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, that's cool. And bear in mind, Night of the Creeps is one of my favorite, genre films. So, but that's beside the point. Oh God, I've taken us way down a rabbit hole here. Sorry, folks. But that's Shane Black, and we also had Bill Duke in this, and I think Bill Duke, he's been in. Well, I mean, he was with Schwarzenegger in Commando for one thing, and he's done a ton of films.
And he had as far as from a storyline in Predator, we were talking about how they, even though there's quite a few sort of what we'd call main characters in it, and they paid off everybody really quickly and really well. He did such a great job because Jesse Ventura in the movie was his kind of best buddy that he'd been through a lot of combat with and stuff, and there's that kind of short scene in there where he's talking to Jesse Ventura's body, and he's kind of sitting there in the moonlight and stuff, and he's having that just you and me, bro, back then, and that was just an example of good writing because they developed his character very quickly, just like they do everybody else's, and then it pays off very quickly, and who he is, you knew what their relationship was in a 45-second long dialogue scene. And I mean, that's one thing that I think you don't see a lot nowadays is like people don't know how to just like give you an intro to somebody very quickly so you know who they are. And this movie, I feel like pays that off with almost everyone like really, really fast, which is really cool. And I think that's why it holds up so good, because you don't have like a 10-minute long scene, people talking like, yeah, I remember back, when we were in training and blah, blah, blah. It was just very fast and the payoff was very quick and it worked really well.
Yeah, well, they did use a lot of stereotypes, so that made it kind of easier, too, though.
Well, yeah, they did. That was the 80s movies, you know?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, true. I mean, you had, what was it? You had the redneck, you had the computer nerd, you had the Native American tracker, you had the deceitful CIA agent, I mean, you had a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah.
And I did think also, I thought it was really interesting because the way they set up Jesse the Body Ventura's character as kind of the redneck, and he has, the whole scene where he's trying to get people to chewing tobacco, and he's making comments that did not age well.
Yes.
I was watching it, and I was like, oh, yeah, wow, you really
They are iconic, but they did not age well. You're correct.
No, it's an iconic line, but you just can't really say it much these days. But, but it was interesting that the dynamic was he and Bill Duke's character were the two that were closest. Because it's a lot of times they would go the opposite and try and make that oh, here's the racist redneck, and he doesn't want to get along with any of these guys. And they went just the opposite. And I thought that was very cool.
Wasn't the original novel like that, though? I thought I read that somewhere.
There was an original novel?
Well, the original screen or writing or whatever it was for this.
The screenplay?
Whatever it's from, yeah. Wasn't that kind of... But they kind of decided not to do it in the movie?
That may be the case. I honestly don't know. Okay. So, and that's one... I mean, I hadn't heard about that, but it would make sense if they decided to not do it, because at the end of the day, you really wanted empathy with all of these characters.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Because none of the characters were the bad guy in this. That's the thing. The bad guy was this alien amorphous character. And I do want to take a second and just say that my one real criticism of the movie is that its opening scene is an alien spaceship flying towards Earth, and something shoots out of it and lands on the Earth. And my reason that I think that's a failing is it would have been so interesting to go into this movie without that and just start with the helicopters landing and then move into this thing. You would have never seen it coming then.
Yeah, but you kind of have to set it up somehow.
Yeah, I would probably counter that comment saying just knowing how, I hate saying this, but like sometimes when you're writing a script, you have to play it as the audience is going to be kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And I feel like which I do agree. I mean, like, for smart people, it'd be like, oh wow, and then all the kind of like From Dusk Till Dawn, it's like oh, it's a bank robber movie. Oh no, shit, there's vampires. It's a vampire movie. Like that was super cool.
Yeah.
But like with Predator, I feel like that did sort of, and I'm not necessarily like completely disagreeing with you because I do think that'd be cool. But I do think, given the time period and stuff, you did have to set up that like something sort of, I don't want to say supernatural, but like something not of this world was kind of going on.
Yeah, because if I didn't know that, I wouldn't have understood the movie at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so Nick, to continue that, so in John Carpenter's The Thing, like The Thing also starts off with a flying saucer, and you see something crash into Earth. Would you have rather not seen the flying saucer in The Thing as well?
That's a good question, and and it's interesting because now you've got me thinking about this from a different perspective. And more to the point, what I'm trying to think about is I don't remember. It's okay. I saw Predator in the theater in 1987. I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just old enough to go to those R-rated movies by myself. Yay! And not that anybody cared back then, but I saw it in the theater, and I honestly don't remember if it would have helped or not, if I would have gotten it or not gotten it. And now the movie is just ingrained in my psyche, so I cannot help but go into it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of projecting back to this. So, and you did bring up a good point, because I feel like the alien ship crashing at the start of the thing was integral to the plot.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it would be. I don't know.
Well, at least, like, looking at it from the perspective I see, like, the thing for me, the payoff of that was, it's like alien ship, something shoots off, it crashes, and you're like, okay, there's an alien in it somewhere, right? And like I said, the year before Aliens came out, so everybody had this idea of what the alien, an alien was. And, you know, with this, like, the scene where, like, okay, there's an alien, you know, because the first time you actually see the Predator, you just see its hand, right, when it picks up the scorpion that Mac took off of Dylan's shoulder. You know, he's like, anytime. You know, and so you see this hand, and you see the thermal vision, and, like, the thermal vision was kind of like the first thing, like, oh, this thing sees kind of weird. That's interesting. What is that? And then, you know, the first time you kind of see the Predator for what it is, when it's not cloaked, it's when it's healing itself. And, you know, you have this alien, but it pulls out this medical kit, this, like, high-tech medical kit, and it, you know, has, like, a anesthetic and a thing to remove a bullet and a thing to heal itself. And that was sort of the cool thing based on that, because, you know, I was like, oh, this isn't just a run around eat people thing. This thing has technology just like we do, and it's there. It's like an equal adversary in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I'd agree on that. And more to the point, you know, when we were talking about the creature design for the alien or the Predator, and, you know, we talked about the mandibles and stuff like that. When I first saw it in the theater, I did not realize that was not its face until it took off the helmet.
Right.
You know, and that sort of freaked me out. I was like, what? That's not its face? What's it doing? Oh my God, it's a monster.
Yeah.
Well, dude, that also led to one of the most iconic Arnold Schwarzenegger lines of all time.
Yes, it did. And because I do not want to click the explicit tab on
we won't
Apple
say it, but we all know what it is.
We don't have to say it. And Mary, I think you know what it is too, right?
I'm not saying it.
All right, just checking. Although now I may try and get you to say it sometime, but that's beside the point.
I think going to Mary's point that she brought up, like, okay, so if we're going kind of scene by scene, like, you know, after that, like, you know, when he's, like, putting the mud on and stuff, going back to, like, the 80s muscle-bound dudes, like, the whole scene when he's, like, putting mud on himself and he's making, like, the bow and arrow and he's just, like, flexing it, you know, like, flexing it behind his shoulders, and his pecs and his lats are all popping out. That was, like, the classic, like, okay, the studio's like, okay, how can we just get him to flex for, like, 5 minutes? Okay, we'll cover him in mud and make him make a bow and arrow out of sticks.
And I know they did that because the guys watching the movie wanted to be like that.
No, and they did. And, you know, I mean, like, growing up, I mean, like, I remember, like, all, you know, I mean, that, like, when I was even, you know, in high school and stuff, like, that's why kids started working out, because they wanted to look like Arnold, you know? I mean, that was a thing, you know, which was kind of one of the sort of crazy mythologies behind Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, he kind of started that whole, you know, because if you look at, like, the older actions, like, you know, Charles Bronson, like, he wasn't, I mean, he was in good shape, but he, you know, but I mean, Arnold was, like, the first dude who was, like, this, like, super big arm, big chest, you know, and I mean, that's kind of what started that. It started, like, a whole era of stuff. And one of this is digressing to another movie real quick, and then we'll come back, but, like, one of the coolest scenes I thought, there's this movie that The Rock was in, one of his first movies called The Rundown. I think it came out in like 2005 or something like that. And there was a scene in the very beginning of the movie where, like, The Rock's walking in this bar to, like, break up a bar fight, and, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger's walking out, and he kind of goes, like, good luck, you know, like he's kind of handing the torch off to him, like, you're the next big buff guy who's gonna, like, you know, make all the teenage boys want to be buff like you, just like I did, and that was a thing, you know, which was, like, that was part of the whole kind of novelty of the 80s, 90s action movies with him in it.
Okay, see, I was older when I was watching these things, and I keep harking back on this, but I'm I'm the hippie generation. So
Yeah.
we looked at that stuff and went like, oh, really? You know, I mean, the people I knew, the women I knew, didn't want a guy that looked like that. They'd rather have, like, the meth head or something, you know, the super skinny guy, you know.
You just explained so much, Mary, in such a short... I really understand your generation much better now. We didn't want the muscle bound guy. We wanted the meth head. Okay.
I wanted the more sensitive, skinny guy, and I hated it because the guys I knew felt bad about themselves because they couldn't be that. Because I mean, honestly, you have to spend your life. That has to be your thing to get like that.
Oh, no, absolutely. To get to that level, that has to be your complete life. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I always felt bad for the guys because they looked at that and wanted to be like that and thought that there's something wrong with them and that they'll never get the women because the women like the big buff guy. And it was like the women didn't want the big buff guy. That was a bunch of bull. But, you know, I think that's why I just never cared much for these movies because it, you know.
Well, and I think, you know, Mary, coming like from like obviously because I was young when these type of things came out and I watched those. I think for me, sort of what it was being like that younger, because I was born in '82, and being that younger generation, it's like, especially like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies in general. You know, it's like you see this big buff guy and like he's big and buff and like, you know, he never gets hurt, you know, he always triumphs and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of, not that that's a positive message to like inflict in a young mind. I'm not saying that's what it is, but like, you know, sort of that's what it was with me and even some of my friends, you know, because, you know, it was like, oh, dude, you get like Arnold, like you're invincible sort of, you know, like, which I said, not a positive thing, but I mean, I think that's what it sort of was. And you know, nowadays, you know, especially with like popular action movies now, they've sort of digress from that, like because you know, in the 80s, 90s, even up to like probably like the early 2000s, like all the action movies, like none of the stars, you know, ever got hurt. You know, they just kill everybody or beat everybody up and then it was over. And then you have like the movies like you know, like John Wick, for example, or another awesome movie that just came out lately called Nobody. You know, it's like the stars are not super big and buff, and like they get completely messed up through the movie. You're like almost near death at certain points, but yet they still triumph. And I think that's sort of like just like the times of change and the genre change to where they adjusted. Because I mean, you know, that's one thing which I think why Arnold's movies like sort of started to fade after a while, because you know, even though he was still in great shape once he got into like his 50s and stuff like that, there becomes a point where your brain can't be like, okay, this 55, 60-year-old dude is still going around beating up everybody, like never gets a scar on him, you know, or never gets hurt. And then, you know, you watch like John Wick or Nobody, and like, you know, Keanu Reeves, like, I mean, he gets like, you know, effed up, you know, in all three movies. And like, you know, like, I mean, and you know, and that is almost cooler now watching that, because it's like, oh man, this dude like almost died. Then he kind of goes home and heals and goes back, and then he gets the bad guys. And I think that's just sort of like a generational thing where like you know, they kind of figured out like, okay, you know, we've had the invincible, huge buff superhero dude who can like, you know, triumph through anything. Let's like push it to another extreme. You know, let's have a dude who's not big and buff and who does get super messed up, but then he still triumphs too. And that's like more rewarding in a way, watching stuff like that.
Yeah. But I think that's why I never really liked the Rocky movies and all those.
Yeah, and like Steven Seagal's the same way. Now, he wasn't big and buff, but he just had a ponytail. But he still never got hurt.
But he had an action ponytail, so
he did. And if you ever watch him, like he runs so weird. Like he doesn't close his fists, and he has kind of floppy T-Rex hands, and it's always thrown me off.
I'm laughing because it's true, by the way.
Yeah, no, like dude, watch Hard to Kill. Like if you watch Hard to Kill, every time he runs, he has T-Rex arms, like, and his hands are just flopping around. And like even back then, I was like, who didn't tell him to close his fists? Like, who runs like that?
I'm gonna have that vision in my mind forever. Little floppy T-Rex hands. That's perfect. Yeah.
Well, on that segue,
I don't think we should go to Steven Seagal movies. That's like a whole other show.
Yeah.
No, that's a show unto itself on so many levels, actually.
But
although I have to say they are pretty much all B movies, so you know.
And then they are all the same movie.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just which ethnicity is he going to kill this time? So
yeah,
you know.
It's a formula that works for him. So makes money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But what I liked about this movie is a lot of the actors actually did have military training at some time in their life. So I got it. I really felt like they were ex-military men. And I liked that. It didn't seem fake to me at all. Their camaraderie.
Well, and Mary, that's a funny thing, like looking back, especially like at Arnold movies and something they've fixed nowadays. Like, nobody in every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, he never aimed his gun. He just kind of kept it at his side and like flexed his arm muscle and people died. And like that's one thing, like, you watch Commando, Predator, anything, like nobody ever aimed their gun. And now, they aim their gun. So you're like, oh, I can understand how they're shooting people now. Like they're actually aiming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, aiming makes a big difference.
It does.
And if only the bad guys would learn that, then a lot of these movies would end a lot quicker.
That's true.
That's
Yeah.
because I mean, what is it? This film, within 20 minutes they make it to a village and it's like an encampment for the I guess the rebels, and they totally destroy that entire encampment with
in like
what
5 minutes.
Yeah, in 5 minutes, but it's the classic 80s. Okay, we're going into a firefight and there's 6 of us and there's 100 of them and nobody's going to get hurt, but we're going to kill all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. And that's you watch that stuff now and you're just like, how did I buy into that? That's very A-team of it.
Well, and it's Nick, it's sort of the whole superhero mindset, because I mean now we see Iron Man and Superman do that stuff, but like back then, we didn't have superhero movies, so like those guys were sort of the superheroes. It's like these guys can go in and 6 guys can kill 100 guys without getting a scratch on them. It's sort of the how it's evolved. It's just sort of different medium, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I like the way they do all kind of training and stuff together so that they would meld as a group.
Oh yeah. I mean they because there's some stuff on YouTube you can watch where they talk about like they did special forces training except for aiming guns, obviously. And like how their formations and stuff like that and all that stuff they did. But yeah, I mean they still did all that stuff back then, but it was just sort of a different animal from where things are now.
Yeah.
And one thing, okay, and this is something, because I rewatched Predator, and I have no idea how many times I've seen it, by the way, because Predator's one of those films that if it's on and I'm flipping channels, I will stop and just watch it.
Yeah.
Because it's just a good film, and you can pick it up from pretty much any point in it. But one of the things I picked up this time, because I was watching it with putting on a different hat, thinking about different things with it, when they go in and destroy the rebel encampment, the Predator is watching them. And I just get the feeling that the Predator was deciding who it was going to go after. Was it going to go after this camp? Was it going to go after them? What was it going to do? And it saw them destroy this camp. And that's why it was like, ooh, these guys are really interesting for prey.
Mm-hmm.
And
that'd be worth it.
Nick, if you, and I've also seen Predator probably over 500 times, like, if you watch it, the Predator sort of kills the weakest person up as they go. If you watch, like, what the guys do when they're killing, like, fighting the camp, like, the Predator sort of picks off the weakest person and then works his way up to Arnold.
Who's the first person that dies in this?
Hawkins, who is the big glasses, the geez, you got a big that line.
Yeah.
So he dies first, and then Blaine, who is Jesse Ventura's character, dies, and so he's sort of kind of picking off the except for Anna, who is the one female role in it, obviously because she never held a weapon, and that's why and they bring that up in the movie. But yeah, he's doing the weakest links and working up to the hardest one because as a hunter trying to prove himself, I think that's sort of his motive. It's he's taking the weak ones out and then save the best one for last, sort of.
Yeah, and that does make total sense now that you brought it up, because that's, again, I really didn't think about the order in which he was killing them, but you're right. He was going for the easiest prey first. But
yeah, because even though Jesse Ventura had the big, huge minigun, he was right behind him, and he didn't turn around, he didn't see him, he just blew his chest out and stuff, and then he does sort of kill the weakest to toughest, in that order.
And I guess my one thought about that also is, it felt sort of like cheating that the Predator shot Jesse Ventura from behind. That was the one kill he did where I really felt like he was just there he is, I'm just gonna kill him. But that was just me, maybe, but I felt, he shot him in the back. Huh. Okay. Because everybody else kind of saw it coming. Or as much as you can.
Okay, all right. So, I'm not saying you're wrong. I agree with that. But he was facing the direction of the Predator, and then he took the safety off his gun, and a little kind of muskrat thing rolls out, right? Like a little hedgehog-looking thing. And, he goes, pfft. And then he turns around, and maybe the Predator did make that noise, and he turned around, then saw the hedgehog, then got distracted, then he turned around, and the Predator was like, all right, easy target, boom, you're gone.
Okay, and I'll buy into that too, so... Yeah, I'm going to end up deferring to you on a lot of stuff, Matt, because I think for every one time I've seen The Predator, you've probably seen it 3, so...
Nick, I don't know a lot about many things, but I have seen this movie a lot.
Wow.
And
if you all want to do an Aliens podcast, I can just verbatim quote the whole movie for 2.5 hours, and then we can talk about it if you want to do that. So.
Wow.
And that might be interesting because this is the thing. These were the movies I was seeing when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, and then going home and trying to get some weights out to lift, like you were saying. And, it's like, oh, geez, all I need to be hot and attractive to the women is to put on about 100 more pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna use these weights in the basement here for a half hour before school every day, and I'll be Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it's worked out so well for me, I might add. Because yeah, that's all I got to say. I have definitely got a Schwarzenegger-esque shaped body now. Unfortunately, it was after a car accident, but that's beside the point.
Jesus.
But nah, and I mean, okay, we talked about the cast in it.
R.G. Armstrong.
R.G. Armstrong.
Oh, General Phillips, yeah.
Yeah. He is a magnificent character actor.
Well, he is, and he appears in so many films.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he is just he's kind of the go-to guy for a lot of movies.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you guys watch the Friday the 13th TV series?
I have watched the Friday the 13th TV series.
Oh gosh, yeah, I have. I can't recall too much from it, but I have, yeah.
Because he was the demonic Louis Vendredi.
Okay. I'll have to look that up because I, honest to God, don't remember it. Okay. But I do remember the TV series, and I remember the premise, and I watched a bunch of episodes, but I don't remember him specifically in it. I do remember him as Amos, the sort of abusive husband who owns the construction company. So he has all the dynamite in the movie The Car, which well, we did The Car on the podcast back about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was even before you were working on the cast, Mary.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was just gathering paperwork at that point.
Yeah, but this. He's.
I read that his best friend was Andy Griffith, and that freaked me out. It was like,
really?
What?
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Of all the weird people, I mean, those two just don't seem to go together for me. Because I saw him in a lot of like the westerns and stuff.
Yeah,
I remember him from that stuff, and a lot of just character actors in TV movies.
He was in Dick Tracy as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and bear in mind, he was 70 years old when he was in The Predator.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, he lived to be almost 100. He was, 95 when he passed?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Talk about a long career.
Yep.
Oh, man.
So we're going to talk about the Predator himself?
Well, what about the Predator,
Peter
Mary?
Hall.
I mean, he was an alien. What more do you need to know about him?
He was, 7'6"?
Yeah, he was also in Harry and the Hendersons. He played the Bigfoot in Harry and the Hendersons, and
yes, his name was Kevin Peter Hall, by the way, for the listeners. So. But yeah, he was tall.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got to say. And by the way, Mary, remember we did Prophecy with the mutant bear?
Yes.
He was the mutant bear.
Okay, I read where he took all of those roles because he was a black actor and he was really, really tall and he couldn't get any other roles.
And
he also played the helicopter pilot at the end of Predator.
Yeah.
Yep. He actually got to be on screen,
which,
I mean, on screen is as himself, sorta.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Bear in mind, as the helicopter pilot, he was seated, so there's no way you could tell he was 7'2". But yeah. And he was also this is interesting because he played the alien in a movie called Without Warning. And that was a Graydon Clark flick. And you remember we had a feature with Graydon Clark when we did that movie with Brian, which was Seven from Heaven / Angel's Revenge / all those different names for that film. Yeah, you know the one I'm talking about, Mary.
Okay.
But Graydon's film Without Warning is sometimes credited as one of the inspirations for Predator.
Okay.
Really?
Because the idea of the film is that there's this alien that is landed in this little town in Southern California, and it's just hunting and killing people and hanging them up in a shed, just sort of like a hunter would hang up deer. And
that sounds just like Predator.
It does sound just like Predator, and it's a lower budget film, and it's much darker. But if you have a chance to watch it, Matt, I think you would appreciate it. And it has the dubious credit of being the film that got David Caruso his SAG card.
Oh.
Because that was his film that got him his SAG membership. So there you go. But that's Without Warning from 1980, and it has Jack Palance and what's his name from
Landau.
Yeah, Martin Landau. Thank you.
Oh wow.
I was wanting to say his name from Space 1999, Commander Koenig, and I was like, it had to be Commander Koenig, only it's not his name. But yeah, it's Without Warning. But yeah, but Kevin Peter Hall was the alien in that.
That's cool.
And talk about a sad story, though.
I know.
I mean,
he died at 35, right?
Yeah, he died at 35. He was in a bad car accident, and he recovered from the car accident, but they had to give him a blood transfusion. And the blood they gave him was contaminated, and he got AIDS from it.
Oh, my gosh. I didn't know that.
And he died from complications associated with AIDS.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was AIDS-related pneumonia that killed him 1 month short of his 36th birthday.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking awful, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Lord knows what he could have gone on to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, he was only 35 when he died. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He'd probably still be acting today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Wow, that was a downer.
Yeah, man. Okay, so cool stuff.
Sorry, guys. Get to the choppa. Oh.
I think kudos go to DreamQuest Images because they're the ones that did the visual effects in that opening sequence.
Yeah.
And they also worked on The Abyss and Total Recall, so that's a really good company.
All good movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, definitely.
Yep.
And The Abyss is very underrated.
Yeah. Actually, The Abyss is. And I think if you watch the documentary on the making of The Abyss, you'll find out how much underrated it is. Because that was some pioneering stuff from Cameron there. But, wow.
Yeah, man, as a, I say filmmaker loosely because I haven't done too much. But, people, hate on James Cameron so much. But, if you look at his portfolio, he's done amazing movies, And The Abyss was one of those things. It's he, when he has a vision in his head, he just goes for it and he does it, and he'll piss everybody off, but he, he accomplishes it, and it's I always thought that was an amazing movie in my opinion, and so many people don't like it.
No, I think it's a great film, and I saw that one in the theater. And bear in mind that when they did a lot of the visual effects for that didn't have to do with the water necessarily. A lot of the CGI effects for that was kind of prototyping the stuff that they would use a couple of years later when they did Terminator 2.
Yeah, for the T-1000.
Exactly. So, the way the water would be used as a probe to go through the base. Yeah, that was totally the start of what would become the T-1000 effect for liquid metal. So,
he had something to do with this one, James Cameron.
With
this film?
With this film. What was it? Okay, where did I read that?
Well, he came up with the design for the creature with Stan Winston.
Mandibles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We talked about that earlier.
They were just friends and they were hanging out.
Yeah, they're on a plane ride together, and he was sitting next to Stan Winston, and they had a conversation, and they came up with Predator.
Okay.
Which, by the way, kind of cool to just be sitting next to James Cameron having a conversation on.
I know, right?
I'm not going to say jealous much, but jealous much, yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
I like the way they had to make one of the trees out of cement because the damn costume was so heavy that they couldn't keep the predator from climbing a real tree.
Well, if you all want to talk about bloopers for a second in Predator, one of the biggest ones is when Arnold Schwarzenegger is jumping to the tree limb towards the end, and in the shot when he jumps, he's covered in mud, and the Predator shoots a laser or a plasma cannon down, and then the tree limb's all kind of jagged, and then when he jumps and grabs it, it's perfectly straight, and then it breaks off.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I noticed that one, and I do have to say, going back to Kevin Peter Hall, by the way, for just a moment, kudos to him, because everybody, Arnold Schwarzenegger was quoted as saying, we didn't so much make the movie Predator as we survived making the movie Predator, because it was such a challenging shoot for them all.
Yeah.
But however hard it was for them, slap 100 pounds of makeup and prosthetics on, and then do that stuff.
Yeah. They had all kind of stuff holding him up and helping him move. Because it was just so heavy and awkward, and
plus they were in I think they were in Brazil or something, and it was 100 degrees out every day, and he had 100 pounds of latex on him and stuff, so it was not fun.
Yeah.
No, and
there were parts where they said that they only shot the bottom part of him. He was able to just take the top off, and they shot whole scenes with just the bottom because the thing was so heavy and unwieldy. And it was so hard for him to deal with. He couldn't see out of the stupid thing.
Yeah, he had to rehearse a bunch of the scenes multiple times without the costume, so he could do it without really being able to see during the actual shot when he had the costume on.
I read somewhere he actually hit Schwarzenegger accidentally.
Oh, he hit him a bunch of times, apparently, but...
Well, and that's one thing, too, like, with Schwarzenegger, like, because of his size, like, they had a lot of trouble finding stunt doubles for him, like, especially in the early days, so he did most of the stunts and stuff himself.
Except for jumping off that cliff, because that guy ended up hurting himself. That stunt double hurt himself on that one. He broke something, or... Oh, he blew out his knee when he hit the wall.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, and I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah.
But
Here's a fun fact. There's a species of spider called goblin spiders, and I'm not even going to try to say it. Predodoronops. And that's the species. And they actually named all the spiders in that species after the characters in this movie. So there's a Blaine. Yeah, there's after every member of the... Yeah, because they saw spiders as being a predator and looking like the predator in this movie. So when they found this species, they named all the spiders after characters in this movie.
So we had a Hawkins spider, Dylan spider.
A Blaine spider, yeah. It's weird.
Okay, that's kind of awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
The Dutch spider.
The Dutch spider.
Get to the web.
I'd like to have been the person that shot the mud onto Schwarzenegger. They said they did it like stuccoing a house with a big gun. That would have been fun.
Mary, you have some very odd things that you would like to do.
Wait. So you're saying they sprayed the mud onto him?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Spackle him.
Yeah. They stuccoed him.
Spackle him with mud.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. If they tried to spread the mud on him, it would probably streak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So to get it on him, it makes total sense that they just doused him in it. Yeah. So get the mud.
Well, and that does bring up a plot point, because the scene when he does have mud on him and he's in the logs and stuff and he's all flexing, his eyes are open. He didn't put mud on his eyes, so Predator didn't see the red hot eyes. But small thing.
The Predator's heat vision didn't seem that specific to me. That's the thing.
It was low tech, man, for sure. If he can make a plasma cannon that can do that, they should have developed the vision a little bit better,
Yeah, because that was the thing. Everything looked a little bit too blobby.
Yeah.
I'm amazed the Predator wasn't just constantly tripping on everything out in the jungle.
Funny story about that, Nick, is when they shot Alien versus Predator, they actually had heat cameras that actually saw in that spectrum. And they were saying because they built the sets, and if somebody had a cup of coffee or something sitting behind a wall, the camera would pick it up. So they had to take that shit out and move it around so nobody could see anything, because the cameras got so sensitive.
Wow.
I could totally see that. That's pretty cool though, actually.
Yeah. I love the visual special effects they did on this.
Yeah.
The whole invisible alien thing. Is that kind of stuff that you can do in your studio?
Well, nowadays, it's much easier to do that stuff than it was. Back then, it was that was obviously a huge, crazy thing to do. Nowadays, I don't want to say yes, it's super easy, because it's not. If somebody was hey, I made this Predator movie, and you want to do the invisibility thing, I'd be let me see if I can figure it out first. But the principles behind it are relatively simple, but I'd probably no, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that.
Aww. I just can't. Well, they did it. What would they do? They filmed a scene twice, because it says they did it a second time and using a 30% wider lens on the camera.
Right. So typically what you would do from like a special effects standpoint, so if you notice like all the scenes where he's invisible, like the camera's like on a tripod, right? Or it's like not moving.
Okay.
So they'd shoot like a plate. So they'd roll, like 30 seconds or something like with a plate, and then they'd roll the same take with the camera not moving with the guy coming in like on a green screen or a green suit on rather.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you composite that out, and then where the green screen is, they put like a sort of a wavy sort of effect on it to give it the Predator cloaking device thing.
Okay. That would be fun to watch. That would be nerve-wracking to do that in post-production, though, to try to match that
it's
stuff
crazy because in the scene in Predator 2, I know we're jumping forward a whole movie, but like when he's Nick, when he's like, or if you all both know, like when he's like fighting like King Willie, like the Jamaican drug lord guy, and the Predator's like walking through the big puddle and like the water's like splashing up. They actually had like air compressors like set like a foot apart that like blew the water up, and then they added in the kind of wavy cloaking device effect on that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. And, it's funny because I kind of wondered how they did that, and my thought was that they had something under the water that was kind of blasting it up, but that makes
right.
sense.
That's exactly what they had. So they had like an air compressor under the water that shot that up, and then like they shot a plate with a dude in green like stepping in there, and they kind of composite that together.
Wow.
And that's just ridiculously cool that they can do that stuff, by the way. But
well, especially back then, because I mean, like to do special effects nowadays, like the stuff we can do now, like compared to back then. I mean, it takes what now takes hours took days or months back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I like they had to use red for the suit.
Yeah.
Because if they use green, everything would be gone.
Yeah,
they're
in a green jungle. Leaves.
That's things I would never have thought about, but it makes you think. And the Predator blood, they wanted it to be orange, but that didn't work out, so they ended up getting the day glow sticks and KY jelly to make it green.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool thing because I mean, green blood, alien blood, like it's green, like that. That's cool. It's kind of like because you gotta go. Once again, like I'm on some forums, like some fan forums and stuff, and on Facebook with the Aliens and Predators and the Thing as well. And one thing people bring up, like on the Thing sites, it's like, why is the Thing blood like green? It's like because if they made it red, it would have had like an X rating because it's like the most graphic, movie with creature effects you've seen ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the green blood for the Predator, though, I think it works in a lot of levels, and one of them to me is the Predator's, one of his keen powers, one of his keys is that he's invisible.
Yeah.
But his blood is bloody well glow in the dark.
Which is like, like every adversary has to have like a weakness, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to have a way to defeat him somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out that the Predators, for all their technology, really just could not make their suits waterproof. Let's face it. Because the big thing that defeated his stealth capabilities was getting his suit wet.
Right.
Well, it's after it got blasted a couple times. I mean, man.
Well, yeah, well, still, it was. Come on, Mary. It was him getting his suit wet. It's like you dropped your iPhone in the toilet. Same thing.
And then you're screwed.
All your technology just goes away.
I can't check my contacts. My GPS doesn't work anymore. I don't know where I am.
Exactly.
I can't call anybody to help because I don't remember their numbers.
I know.
Well, it's funny because like one of the fan sites I'm on, like the most common topic that's brought up is like Predator versus Terminator, Predator versus Alien, Predator versus The Thing, and I'm always like, okay, like not to be like a party pooper, but like you all realize every Predator movie, the Predator always gets beat by whatever he is fighting.
Yeah.
he or she is fighting. I don't need like gender specific to Predator, but like so I'm always like they're like, okay, Predator versus Terminator. I'm like, okay, like human Arnold beat Predator, so Terminator Arnold would definitely beat Predator.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, but you got to admit though, the Predators are kind of spoiled sports. It's
well,
like
yeah, for sure. I mean,
they're
just like, oh, I'm going to go to this
them.
planet and kill some people and get my trophies and go back home, you know.
It's like, oh, I'm going to lose? Well, I'd better just nuke everybody.
Nuke the whole area.
Well, they're just like wild game hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just game.
Well, maybe they should make it where if you're going to be a big game hunter in Africa, you should blow up if you don't bag something.
That would be good. I'd enjoy that.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not a big fan of big game hunting in Africa.
Exactly.
You know, because
I'm also not either, but, you know.
You know, so
if they would get blown up if they missed, that would be good.
That would be good, and if they gave guns to the animals, that would be better. But, you know, of course, the animals can't really use guns, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, is it really dangerous hunting a giraffe, for example?
No, it's not at all. Like, you literally can walk up to it and shoot it, and that's terrible.
Exactly, and that's why I'm not a big fan of the big game hunters. And so at least you got to give the Predator credit. He was only shooting at people that were packing heat.
Yeah, dude, he didn't try to kill Anna or anything in there, you know.
No.
And Schwarzenegger's troop didn't do it for. What was that line where he was saying that his group went out and rescued people?
Yeah, they were a search and rescue team.
Yeah,
they
he's
assassins.
like,
right.
We're a rescue team, not assassins.
Yeah.
And, you know, this goes back to what you were saying about this being one of Schwarzenegger's better acting roles, because the character was well thought out. And I think part of that was that this was a team of professional soldiers, but they were ethical.
Yeah.
And, you know, they were essentially, okay, your CIA special ops team is behind enemy lines and they're down. We'll go get them out. Mm-hmm. We will extract, you know, the hostages from this situation.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's what opened them up to being exploited by Carl Weathers, the dodgy CIA agent buddy of his.
Well, and, you know, Nick, that's one of the things that kind of brings some humanity to all of them. It's like you see them kill all these people, but it's like at the time, it's like, this is our mission. These people kidnap people. You know, you see the hostage get shot. So, you know, it's like, okay, all the people down there are bad guys.
Yeah.
And they go kill them. And then they realize maybe they weren't too bad. And then they're sort of all subjected to Predator's, you know, outcome for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you realize that 69 people got killed in this movie?
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think the largest body kill for any Arnold movie is, I think, Commando, and I think it's like 276.
Wow.
I think you're probably right, because at one point he goes in and mows down just truckload after truckload of expendable soldiers.
Oh yeah, like the last like 15 minutes of Commando are literally just like him holding like a M50 and just like everybody dies.
Yeah. By the way, can I just say that Special Forces team that went in, the Dutch's team, had the biggest diversity of guns I've ever seen in a Special Forces team. It's just like,
well, if you're going to be a Special Forces team, man, you got to have the grenade dude, you got to have the minigun guy, then you have all the other dudes. Like, you know, they don't know what they're going to like come up against. So
no, I'm buying into it. It's just I think it's kind of cool how many different guns they managed to bring out in this one group. And you know, my one comment is I hope nobody needed to borrow anybody else's bullets. You know, it's like, oops, I ran out. I need a couple of bullets, but no, yours won't fit.
Well, they probably wasted them all in that scene where they shot the forest down. Like, if they just would have stopped, like, even 45 seconds earlier, they would have had a lot more guns to kill the Predator with.
Yeah. They definitely couldn't make this movie now because they killed that scorpion and ASPCA would have gotten after him or something. They didn't harm any other animals, but they did get the scorpion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we've kind of beat Predator to death at this point. So maybe we'll go ahead and just do the plot synopsis. And again, in case we haven't mentioned this before, go watch the movie because I'm going to spoil it for you if you don't. So, there you are. But Predator, okay, so the film, starts out just like any other 80s action movie, except for the fact that before the film's title rolls across the screen, we see an alien spaceship kind of zip past the Earth and shoot something down to the planet. And for the first time you see it, you kind of don't know what that is, but at the same time you kind of do, because this movie's name is Predator, and the idea is that, man is the prey in this one. So, film opens up, and we have a Special Forces Commando team that is fresh out of going to the golf club, it looks like, when they show up, because they're all in their civilian clothes. And they're flying in on Huey helicopters, and it's a very macho scene. They get out of the helicopter, and we see Arnold Schwarzenegger there with his iconic cigar, and he's Dutch, the leader of a Special Forces search and rescue team, who's been brought in according to the mission, they've been brought in to save a couple of diplomats who have been, their helicopter went down in rebel territory, and they have to get them back from an ambiguous Central American country. And bear in mind, this was the 80s, so Central America was kind of our favorite stomping ground for anything like this, and if it had been South America, it would have been drug dealers. It was Central America, so it's something to do with the Russians, most likely, and probably Ollie North with his guns are hiding out somewhere around there. But anyhow, as they are, being introduced, we get to meet Dutch, who is, he's supposed to be a retired Vietnam War veteran who leads this elite mercenary team, and we meet his team, which is Poncho, Billy, Mac, Blaine, and Hawkins, and they are all kind of stereotypical examples of your 80s action heroes. We've got the computer nerd, we've got the big redneck, we've got the Native American tracker, explosives expert, and then we've got Blaine, who I guess is just the general badass of the group. But anyway, they are all there to ostensibly save these cabinet ministers, who have been lost out in the rebel-held territory. And they're being led by Carl Weathers. And Carl Weathers, his whole thing is, hey, I'm Dylan, I'm Dutch's old war buddy, and now I'm a CIA operative. And no, there's nothing about this mission that's funny or odd or whatever, but yeah, I'm going to go with you anyway. So they fly in on some helicopters, get dropped in the woods, and proceed to tromp through the jungles of South America looking for this rebel camp. And the first thing they do is find the crashed helicopter, and that seems kind of weird to them because they examine the bodies and they realize, that these helicopter guys, they've been shot in the head, and whoever's missing is gone. But it's a strange situation. And then they notice that there's also been a group of other people, 6 people wearing American military boots, have passed through the area. And, Dutch asked Dylan about this, and he's like, I don't know anything about it. Well, they find those guys shortly, and they find them in the most horrific way possible. 3 of them are skinned and hanging upside down from trees, and so that's pretty shocking. And at this point, you kind of know this is a little bit different from your standard action movie. And the tracker, Billy, he's all like, I don't know what's going on, man, but I didn't see any tracks for these guys to be taken out of here, but there's only 3 bodies, so I don't know. And Dutch identifies them as Green Berets out of Fort Bragg that he knew personally, and he knew that they were a really tough team, and yet here they were killed and skinned by supposedly these guerrillas. And what's even stranger was there was a big firefight, and they shot in all directions.
but there's
Jim
no
Hoppa,
evidence.
I knew this man.
Say it again.
Jim Hoppa, I knew this man.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Because that's the thing. When you do the Arnold, you have to talk like this.
Oh.
Oh, thank you, Mary. No, don't worry, Mary. I'm not going to do the whole thing like that. But I may do parts of it this way. Blah, blah, blah. But anyhow, so they get to the village that's run by the guerrillas just in time to see them execute one of the hostages. And so they say, okay, we got to go in and we've got to take these guys out. So what follows is about a 5-minute long, very testosterone-filled 80s action scene of generic South American guerrilla warfare, or excuse me, guerrilla troops being just obliterated by 6 Americans with guns. And yeah, it's a pretty good little bit. I mean, there's the Arnold Schwarzenegger puts a bomb in a truck that's being used to power a pump and drops it and lets the truck run into the building and blow it up. And he throws a machete through a guy and goes, stick around, when he pins him to the wall. So very classic 80s action stuff. And at this point, they pretty much massacre everybody except for one woman. Her name's Anna, and she's one of the guerrilla fighters, but they spare her. At this point, they're like, okay, what's going on here? These are not South American cabinet ministers. These guys look like CIA. And so Dutch confronts Dylan, and it turns out that Dylan lied to them. This was a big operation, and the Soviets were planning something with these rebels, and they were going to invade this ambiguous Central American country, and that would have been the end of democracy as we know it. But fortunately for us, Dutch and his team managed to kill everybody and save all of Central America from the Soviets. Or at least that's how Dylan would have you buy it. But whatever the case, Dutch is really, really, really annoyed at his old friend Dylan, but not much they can do about it, because at this point there are guerrilla troops massing and they're coming in to kill them, so they've got to get out of there. So as they're cleaning up the camp, we suddenly switch fields of vision, and everything goes to this thermal camera vision. And we're seeing through the eyes of the Predator, the alien that has come to Earth to hunt humans, apparently. Because, hey, we're good game, especially if we've got guns. And so Dutch and his group start running off through the woods. And I say the woods, by that I mean the really dense South American jungle. And, they need to be moving fast because they've got all these guerrilla warriors that are coming up behind them. But as they're moving, they're being tracked by the Predator. And, Anna, of course, she's trying to escape. And at one point, she smacks Hawkins in the face with a stick and goes running off. And Hawkins grabs her, and just as he does, he is killed brutally, and she sort of sees what does it, but she doesn't, because as she describes it to Carl Weathers' character Dylan, it's like the jungle just came alive and took him. Ooh. And she's covered in blood, by the way, and I think it's funny because when the guys find her, she's covered in blood, but her hands are tied. And they're like, what did you do to him? What could she do to him might be the better question, But anyway, they start looking around and trying to find his body, but it's just gone. They find what might be his body, but that's it. And then as they're searching, Blaine gets shot. And Blaine is the Jesse the Body Ventura character, and he's the one with the minigun. And he gets shot by the creature. Well, his best friend Mac grabs the minigun and sees this creature, and he sees its eyes glow green for a second. He goes crazy, and he starts shooting at it, and he ends up shooting God only knows how many thousands of rounds of ammunition downrange at this thing. And the rest of the team shows up, and they all start shooting, and literally we spend a minute and a half of nothing but shooting machine guns into the woods. and they manage to basically scratch the predator. I think they hit it with one bullet, and it leaves some of its day glow blood on a tree, but that's it. And at this point, they're like, we don't know what it is that's out there. Dylan's convinced that it's just a couple of guys out there trying to mess with them. But Billy, the Native American tracker, he's like, I'm scared, Dutch. And they're like, you ain't scared of no man. And he says, this is no man chasing us. Dun, dun, dun. So that night, they set a bunch of traps, and they're going to try and catch this thing, or at least have a safe place to sleep. And they've still got Blaine's body. Well, something breaks through their perimeter, and it turns out to be a wild boar, and Mac kills it. But as he's killing it, the predator slips in and steals Blaine's body. And at this point, it's like Dutch finally realizes, hey, maybe it's using the trees to travel, and so our high-tech traps are not very effective. So the next day, they set up a bunch of old-school Kevin McAllister Home Alone traps, with like a net and a log and a bunch of other stuff to hit the predator. And that seems to work because it can spot the technology, but it has a harder time spotting stuff that's made out of like vines and tree stumps and stuff like that. So they managed to catch the predator in a net for all of 3 seconds. But then it blows everything up and goes running off into the woods. Well, Mac chases it, and Dylan goes after Mac. Not Hawkins, but Pancho gets wounded because he's hit with the Kevin McAllister log, and so they have to take care of him. Well, Dylan and Mac see the predator, and they come up with an elaborate scheme where Dylan's going to flush it towards Mac, and then Mac will kill it. Well, my first thought is they have guns and they can see the predator up in a tree. Even though it's invisible, it leaves kind of a ripply effect, and so they can see its outline. And my first thought is, well, you guys are not that far away. Maybe you ought to just start shooting at it from there while you can see it. But instead, they decide to do the whole flush it towards me and I'll catch it. Well, obviously, the predator is a much better hunter than they are. And so it manages to get ahead, kill Mac, and then we have the great scene where Dylan's there, and he's got 2 machine guns, one in each hand, and the predator immediately blows his right arm off, and you see it falling to the ground with the machine gun still firing, and in the most macho thing ever, Carl Weathers, he unstraps his other machine gun, and he's trying to get it out, but before he can do it, the predator guts him, and it's a very dramatic scene. And at this point, we move into high-speed chase mode because now there's no screwing around. The predator is just chasing them. And Dutch, and I think Matt touched on this earlier, is really learning as they encounter the predator. And what he figures out is that the beast that's chasing them didn't kill Anna when it had the chance because she wasn't armed. And so he decides to go ahead and, keep her unarmed, and they're running along, and Billy decides, hey, you know what? I'm going to stay and fight this creature, and it's probably going to kill me, but I'm going to fight it. So he throws away his gun, maybe not the smartest move ever if you're going to fight this thing, and he pulls out his machete, and he just stands there and is ready to fight it. And we don't even get to see this fight particularly, but it doesn't go well for Billy. That's all we know. And so Dutch is trying to get to the choppa with Anna and the wounded Pancho, and then basically it comes in and just kills Pancho, and it's about to shoot Arnold, and Anna goes for a gun, and he's like, no, and kicks the gun out of her hand and tells her to get to the chopper, and the predator is chasing him, and he ends up falling in the water and getting covered in mud. And when he comes out of the water covered in mud, that basically cloaks his heat signature from the predator's infrared vision. And Dutch figures out And I don't know that if he understands that it was heat vision or what, but he just realizes that the predator can't see him. And there's this great scene when he's there kind of hiding, and the predator actually just sort of crawls over him at one point. But Dutch decides he's going to kill this thing. He's got to take care of it. So he does go through this whole Kevin McAllister Home Alone bit and sets all these traps for the monster, including one where he's going to drop a log on its head, just like Kevin drops an iron on the wet bandits. So the predator comes in, big fight. It doesn't fall for every trap, but it does finally fall for Dutch's last trap, and he drops the log on its head and kills it. But as it's dying, it starts sort of laughing at him, and it flips open its wristwatch, and of course it's got a nuclear bomb in its control panel on its wrist. So it starts doing a countdown, and he runs and just manages to avoid getting nuked. So, moral of the story, don't go to Central America ever. Because it's full of aliens. And, that's it. It's full of aliens, and there's nothing good down there other than Costa Rica because they've got dinosaurs. So that's where you go. If you're going to go to Central America, you go to Costa Rica because they've got all those little islands off the coast and they've got dinosaurs. Any questions? The press. No. All right. Well, then get to the choppa. By the way, this movie has the highest ratio of quotable lines of any action movie I think I could name. I mean, it's just like every time somebody opens their mouth, it's something that you want to quote some other time. It's I ain't got time to bleed. Get to the choppa, stick around. I mean, just one after another.
Or if you're like me, you don't remember them, so.
Well, there is that. But Mary, that's why you go to IMDb to the quotable lines section.
Okay.
And they'll just give them all to you. Okay. It's really nice.
You won ugly. Sorry, I'm not going to do it. I won't do it. Okay.
I know. Right. I so want to do it myself, but I don't want to hit explicit on the iTunes podcast app.
No, we'll keep it for the kids, man. It's for the kids.
Yeah. It's for the kids, just like Predator was when you were 6.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I have to say that's almost as bad as my parents letting me watch Salem's Lot when I was 8. When it was on TV. So,
wow.
But I managed.
Guys, I had a blast tonight. This is super fun, and thank y'all for having me.
Dude, thank you for joining us, Matt. It was super fun having you on the show.
Yeah.
Well, anytime. Next time, if you would Aliens one or Die Hard one, dude, I'm down.
Well, we've done Die Hard because that's our Christmas movie a few years ago. But
well, let's do Die Hard 3.
Die Hard 3, that's Die Hard in New York, wasn't it, or something like that? Yeah, we could totally
do vengeance.
That one's got Samuel L. Jackson. All right, well, take it easy, Matt, and thanks for coming on the show.
Much.
Man.
All right, guys, thank y'all for having me.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Mary, do we have any feedback?
Yes, we do. Do.
Let's have some feedback.
This first one is from Nicholas Stumpf. He says, greetings, Mary, Nick, and Juan. He says, as well as any other guests who may be on today's podcast. I hope everyone has been doing well. I'm sorry for not having written or recorded feedback for a while, but my wife and I just had a baby girl back on April 11th, and as you can imagine, all of my time has been occupied. With any luck, she'll be a future B-Movie Cast podcaster listener like her dad. Woohoo! Get her started young. I've been listening to the podcast during the late night feeding sessions with the baby, and that has helped me keep my sanity. I especially enjoyed the Skull podcast you guys did. I had never seen that film before, and it was quite enjoyable, albeit creepy. Peter Cushing was his normal terrific self in this one. I was happily surprised to see that you guys are going to start some Bond films. I've always loved those. Dr. No was A great first entry into the Bond series and had everything from killer tarantulas to flamethrower-equipped tanks. It was definitely a good start to the Bond series, and I loved the job you guys did covering it. Santo... Okay, he did it in Spanish. Santo and Anonymous Death Threats was another film I had not seen. I have enjoyed the numerous other Santo films that Juan has brought up on the cast, and this one was no exception. Our masked hero does all he can to find out who is leading the anonymous death threats and save the day once again. Thank you, as always, Juan, for bringing these movies to our attention. Nick, I hope that your trip to Texas was pleasant and that you got to enjoy some Texas-sized hospitality. And Mary, I hope all is well with you and that you and Nick continue to bring us this wonderful podcast for a long time to come. Take care, everybody out there in B-Movie Land. Until next time, best wishes, Nick Stump from Indianapolis. So,
all right,
wow.
Nick,
So congratulations. Little baby girl named Charlotte.
Yeah.
And hope she just keeps getting better and bigger and healthier and you're less sleep deprived.
I'd say he's got a year or two before that changes, but good luck, man. Seriously.
Really, congratulations. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one is from Karen Zlongowitz. It says, the answer is Soylent Green from 1973. My wife serves up soy on a daily basis. As long as it's not people, that's cool. We can deal with it. Next one's from Christopher Page. Says, easy peasy. This is none other than the great Edward G. Robinson in one of Charlton Heston's apocalypse films, Soylent Green from 1973. Hope everyone is doing well. Really miss you guys and can't wait till we can sit around the table again and talk and laugh.
Indeed.
I know. I can't wait. It's like the Twilight Zone or something, not being able to go to the bash every year. We've done it for so many years now that it's like time stopped or something.
I know.
It's weird. But, okay, this next one is an MP3, and it is from Bill Mize. So here we go.
Hello, my Nick. Hello, my Mary. It's Bill Mize over here at the Bill Watches Movies podcast. And you know, if you are talking about a Santo movie, that I'm going to call in and give y'all some lovin'. First, I am all about Nick's Lucador businesswear idea, but I think that we have to get people used to it slowly. Maybe wear your Lucador mask on your daily Zoom calls and have everyone call you El Mascara de Finance Departamento or La Mascara de Human Resources. This, I believe, will get folks used to the sight of you walking down the hallway in your mask and turtleneck. But please don't take it to the next level by smooching random co-workers a la Santo, because, well, you will definitely be seeing La Mascara de Human Resources sooner than you anticipated and in person, and she's got a small box for your belongings and a small restraining order for your collection. Next, I'm super glad that Juan has his website up and running and his mail order business humming along. Because as we know, good sources for Mexican films, especially Lucador films, are few and far between, so congratulations, Juan. We Floridians have to stick together down here in the swamp. Finally, I'm glad that everyone was able to have a Bill moment last month and share it with your listeners as my dulcet tones are scattered through the airwaves like a young Gary Owens. I kind of feel like the Mr. Rogers of Monster Kid podcasting.
Definitely.
Now, speaking of podcasts, if your listeners would like some more Lucadorian goodness, I invite them to check out my own show. Last May, I did Santo and Blue Demon versus the Monsters, and this May, I am doing Santo versus the Vampire Women. So I think that they should put on their own Lucador mask turtleneck, and cape, and enjoy. That's about it for me this month. Thank you both so much for your support of my show. Thank you for everything that you do, and I will talk to you and listen to you soon. Hashtag Monster Bash 2022. We'll see you later. Take care.
Oh, thank you, Bill.
Yes, for real. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah. Yeah. Go to work and wear a mask. Take a picture. I want to see that.
I think I'm going to not do that because even though I think my luchador line of business wear would be very successful in certain parts of the world, I fear that it would be detrimental to my my career overall.
Probably.
So, but that I don't want to discourage anyone else, though. And please feel free to call me if you'd like to purchase a mask at 1-800-LUCHA-MASK. That's 1-800-LUCHA-MASK. Call now. Nobody is standing by.
Yeah. Okay. Next one is from Kurt Picata. Says, hi, Mary. Contest photos from Soylent Green, 1973 sci-fi movie, and the actor in the photo is the legendary Edward G. Robinson. I love your show. Keep up the great work. All the best to you, Nick and Juan. And that's from Kurt. And I'm waiting for some more stories from your neighbors that you always used to send in. Okay, this next one's from Brenda McNeil. And she guessed 1973 Soylent Green. And she says, I've been lax on entering. Your Facebook post helped nudge me. And she said, Soylent Green was the second or third movie date I had with her husband. How could I not recognize it? Aw. Well, love you, Brenda, and hope to see you 2022. Yeah, 2022, yeah. Hope to see everybody in 2022. I want the old group together again so we could party.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This next one is from Stephen Turek. Says the answer is Soylent Green 1973 with the wonderful Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson. It is still a great sci-fi movie. I love this part. It says, also, Mary, I have talked to my lawyers from Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, and we have all agreed that since it is well past Nick's birthday, you do not have to watch Xanadu until next year.
Oh. What travesty is this? I am afraid I will have to file a motion with the court on that.
Well, so you can get in touch with the Three Stooges, and you can. Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
Hey, I will fight this to the Supreme Court of Comedy or something. I don't know.
Next one's from Marlo Brown. Says, hi, Mary, Nick, and the gang. The answer is Edward G. Robinson, Soylent Green, 1973, one of the classic sci-fi movies from the early 1970s. What a great Twilight Zone podcast. Casey Knoll was a fun and interesting guest with lots of good things to say. I found all 3 episodes y'all covered available on YouTube. And he said y'all, not me. So all 3 episodes were excellent choices, but my favorite by far was A Little Peace and Quiet. I didn't see it when it first aired because I was Navy OCS in Rhode Island. They kept us pretty busy. I like the way they introduced the nuclear threat throughout the episode. The nuclear weapons we see at the end looks too complete, though. Okay, he's going to get technical here. He says, I think it would be a multiple independent re-entry vehicle, which has me quoting the line from The Abyss, here's Merv, M-I-R-V, a reference to the talk show host, Merv Griffin, that a lot of people won't get these days. I got it.
Okay, I have to say, by the way, Mary, that is the second Abyss reference in this episode.
Yes, it is.
Just saying.
Okay. Put it on the list. It seemed that the pendant actually stopped time. For that reason, Penny might not be able to use any technology with stored energy like cars or firearms, and maybe not even fire or batteries. Animal muscle like horses would be out as well. Assuming she was in Southern California, she'd have a very long trip if she had to use a handcart to get her family to northwestern Cal, southwestern Oregon, which in the 1980s was supposedly the biggest area likely to be free of fallout if the usual wind patterns held up after she restarted time. Whew. He really thought this through.
He did, and I have to say, by the way, I actually thought about the whole MIRV thing myself, and I also know that most nuclear strikes, the nuclear weapon would probably be detonated above ground, like before it hit the Earth, because that does more damage, actually, they found. So, yeah, there were a lot of little technical foibles with that, but it was still freaking scary.
I know.
Okay, carry on.
Carry on. If cars didn't work, she probably would not be able to move anyone beside her husband and her feral children. I like that. She also would have to carry food and water for the long stretches of arid country in California. At least nothing would spoil with time stopped. I hadn't thought about that. So she'd be able to find fresh produce, meat, and fish in grocery stores and might have to learn how to enjoy raw fish if fire didn't work. Sushi was popular in SoCal in the 1980s. She'd also need to find shelter, tools, food, and water once the family was at their destinations, preferably while time was still stopped. At least the weather was nice, and it wouldn't change during the trip. Without daylight to keep her internal clock set, she'd have to figure out a way to try to eat, sleep, rest, and hydrate regularly. This sounds silly, but it's why a watch is a really important piece of survival equipment. Okay, one dark thing to consider. Not all MIRVs would land at the same instant. So some nuclear fireballs were probably already present over target areas. That's true. She might have to stay off the beaten path and might have to make a dosimeter if she wanted her family to stay safe. Crescent Kearney's book, Nuclear War Survival Skills, told us how to make one from common items, and it was in print in 1985. So, sorry for the long message, but I tend to approach things as problems to solve, and Penny's situation was a tough problem. But one that could be solved, and even if it took weeks or months of effort. I'd better let you go. Looking forward to the next cast. Bye, Mary. Bye, Marlo. Wow.
Yeah, bye, Marlo.
Wow. I kind of gave up on it because I wasn't even sure if a wheel would turn.
Yeah, that was an interesting thought, and I don't know if a wheel would turn either. Yeah. I would say, based on the way that the people didn't move, that a wheel would not turn.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So
she was just kind of screwed.
Sled, yeah, I'd have to give up.
That's my thought, but anyway.
Yeah, and I thought about that, too, because my girlfriend was moving from her house here up to Minnesota, and her and her husband are both in the nuclear business, and we found an old home nuclear energy kit.
That is terrifying, Mary.
Yeah. So we opened it up, and it had 2 pocket dosimeters and a charger. That wouldn't do any good at all because you couldn't charge it. So
wow.
Yeah, that wouldn't work. Thank you, Marlo. That was good email. And this next one is an MP3, and it's from Stan Ward.
Hi, Mary, Nick, and Juan, and the rest of the B-Movie Cast family. This is Stan from the Creepy Hills north of Doylestown checking in. Great episodes. They're just getting better and better all the time. And I think those bumpers at the beginning and the end are just hilarious. It's my kind of humor. I wish I could do something like that with my real estate business, but I don't think that would be a good idea. Anyway, episode 470, Santo and the Anonymous Death Threat. I love those Mexican horror movies and the things with Samson and the masked wrestlers. I think they are hilarious. Age-wise, I'd say I'm probably between Mary and Nick, so I remember the old school horror movie host, but I also remember Commander USA's groovy movies and TNT's Monster Vision, so I'm kind of in both worlds there. In Philly, we had a guy named Dr. Shock. You can probably still catch him on YouTube. But I remember late nights watching those K. Gordon Murray versions of the Mexican horror movies.
Wow.
I thought they were great. Some of my favorites were Samson versus the Vampire Women, Samson and the Wax Museum. The Brainiac is hilarious, especially with bourbon. Bloody Vampire was very good. Invasion of the Vampires was very good. Ones that never made it that I think are really good is the World of the Vampires and Santo and Blue Demon versus Dracula and the Wolfman. That's English subtitled, but you haven't lived until you've seen a werewolf in a leisure suit and pants. Anyway, that was a great episode. Episode 471, which was the 80s reboot of Twilight Zone, is good, too. I am more of an Outer Limits and Night Gallery type guy, but I would say that Night Gallery was a little bit more of an uneven thing than Twilight Zone. They definitely had better episodes in the Twilight Zone. But listening to that episode, it reminded me with the time travel, which, you know, science fiction is always heavily into time travel stuff. But I remember reading a series of books by a guy named Paul Anderson, P-O-U-L, Anderson, and it was the Time Patrol series. And he started writing them in the 1950s, and he was writing them all the way up, off and on, until the mid-1990s. And it was really good because it wasn't so much trying to stop somebody from doing something or anything like that, although that was a main part of the stories. But it was, you know, the premise was that they had created a time machine and some criminals had stolen one of them, and they're trying to get it back, and these criminals, for their own benefit, are trying to change history. So these guys that are the Time Patrol, they'll plant people in various time frames, and they're just there to watch, to see that history happens the way it should. It's a really good premise because these people, they have the benefit of medicine that we don't have because they can go into the future. But the stories center around, you know, their relationships with the people that they deal with in those time frames. And there's some sad stuff where, you know, guys watching somebody that he loves in 12th century Transjordan, which is Iraq now, dying of something that he could save her very easily by just giving her medicine, but he cannot alter the past. So he has to watch people he loved die, and it's a really good series. And some of what you guys were talking about in the Twilight Zone episode was reminding me of that. But anyway, great podcast as always, and I hope to contact you guys soon. This is Stan from the Creepy Hills north of Doylestown signing off.
Well, thank you, Stan. That was great.
Yeah, for real.
We gotta start doing the Outer Limits ones again.
I'm up for that.
Okay. And by the way, everything is better with bourbon, so.
Yes, it is.
Okay, this next one's from Gary Jenny John. It says, Soylent Green 1973. I expect you'll get a lot of correct answers for this one, and we did. Nick.
What?
And, okay, the last one is from Peter Steema. It says, Hi, Mary. Hi, Peter. Soylent Green 1973. I saw this movie when it came out and thought Edward G. Robinson was completely cornball. I watched the film last year and thought his performance was very moving. Older and wiser. Yep. That's from Peter. And that's true.
Wow.
I go back and watch movies now, and they're totally different. I'm watching them from a different time zone, timeline now. You know,
I like it when you say it's a different time zone, though, Mary. That's, you know, it's like I moved to a different part of America, and now I watch them from a different time.
Yeah,
so.
And they're different now.
No, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
so.
It's like you watch the movie and you see people that were before they were famous, and you go, I didn't know that person was in this movie. Or I'll look at something now, and back when I watched the movie, the person was really old, and I just thought they were stodgy looking, and I didn't care for them and stuff. But I'll watch it now that I'm older and go, oh, I get it now. It's weird how your life changes, how you see the movies again.
I would agree.
Yeah. So that's the end of the feedback. Woohoo! It's been a long podcast.
It has. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, Mary, I think we need to split.
Yes. Yes.
So, good night.
Good night.
Good luck.
Yes.
Watch out for snakes. Watch out for predators.
Yes.
And we will talk soon.
Yes. What's the next one?
Probably Raiders of the Lost Ark with Eric Brooks.
Good, cool.
So, dun 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 dun
dun dun dun dun dun. Okay.
See?
No,
all right.
That's stuck in my brain now. Thank you, Nick.
Yep, you're welcome. Night, Mary.
Night, Nick.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
Adios, Mafia.
Well, they've gone.
For good job?
No, just for now. It wasn't the right time for us to meet. But there'll be other nights, other stars for us to watch. They'll be back.
The ghosts are moving tonight, restless, hungry.
All right, fellas, here's your story.
Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
Wait, Captain. I have found evidence of intelligent beings on this planet.
Look to the skies. It's the B-Movie Cookbook. Menus inspired by 15 of your favorite B-movies from the 1950s. With teenage werewolves, blobs, and enough cheese for everyone.
When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
But until then, we've got Ed Wood and Vincent Price.
There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
So impress your friends with dinner and a movie with the B-Movie Cookbook. We've got you covered. Get your copy today at bmoviecookbook.com. That's bmoviecookbook.com.
Let me see that book. I am interested to see what sways your mind so heavily.
Sure thing. Just visit bmoviecookbook.com.
Anybody around here want some coffee?
Transmission.
The good guys always win, even in the 80s.